socially active person.
Yeah, actually, that's why
that's not the same thing.
Yeah,
I can see the value of that.
that's exactly why this example was created. Basically, it has some intuition behind it. It's a joke, of course. It's a small example to learn what this entry means, but that's really, you can interpret it that way. Yes, if the person applies to a senior position, one way to determine if that person can be a leader, if that person is posting on Twitter, so it means that he expresses his or her opinion and the social active. So. No, I do not tweet because that's. I post on other social. I use other.
I tweet, but not under my own name.
In my case, my wife is responsible for Facebook, so I can consider that yes, I do.
Yeah, exactly. So we are on the direct way. Do you have public speeches? Do you have?
Can you increase the reputation of the company by following it in public? Or decrease. Absolutely. That under tweets, yes, it should be like, is lunatic or like is smart.
Guys, do not tweet and be in the middle, so you just, and you will be hurt in any case.
So for the PhD, it's probably also some intuition. If that person who applying for junior has a PhD, he or she is overqualified, probably will not accept the offer in any case, so why to invite that person for an interview? Okay, that's a tree that would have been built, and we have actually a Jupyter notebook for that. Probably let's postpone looking at that until we are done with our decision trees. So, how we build decision trees heuristically? What's the idea? Basically, we do those by recursively partitioning all the features to decide which features to put at which level of the tree. And the idea is the algorithm chooses the most predictive feature to split the data. Again, that's a heuristic, because the most predictive feature which you put at that level, you don't take into account what would have been if you put another feature underneath and so on. So it's just a heuristic. You find the most predictive feature without looking at anything beyond that. Just look at that particular level of the tree without looking at the level underneath. And the predictiveness, its heuristic, is based on decrease in entropy or gain information field review. It's also called impurity. So the idea is, when you decide which feature to put at the next level of the tree, let's say that you have this case. You have two classes, for examples in one class, for example in the other class at this level. Now, if you put a feature in like that, that does this. So all classes that are null collected here or classes that are collected there. That's a perfect classification, yeah? We would love to have that feature in this level of the tree, because after putting it there, we have a perfect classification. That's what the feature we would like to put at this level of the tree. Everybody with me? In the opposite case, if there is a feature after which it's again 50-50, let's use this to put this feature at this level of the tree, because there is no gain in information. Intuitive. Now let's put this into the formulas. This idea. And the formula will compute for the two examples to show. So the formula is this heuristic function that you use to decide which field to put in the tree is called entropy or information gain. So what is information gain number? So that's an entropy, and we'll discuss the entropy function. It looks like this, so bear with me. So information gain is the entropy of the parent node of the tree minus the average entropy of the children node of the tree. You just computed for the two previous examples on the board, so not a big deal. So what is entropy, which we need to substitute here? Entropy is the sum of the, so here is a probability of each of the class minus the probability of each of the class multiplied by the logarithm of probability, and we sum up of all the classes. If we have binary tree, we have just two classes. Going back. So that's how the entropy function looks like. If you plot this function, do it yourself, you will see this. The red is the entropy. There is another function which is called Gini, which looks very similar to the entropy function. But as you see, the Gini function is much easier to compute. It doesn't have non-linear terms. It has just quadratic terms. So when you implement this on the computer, this function computing this number will be probably 10 times faster than this number, just because non-linear function computing on a computer is very slow. So that's why when people want to speed up computational time, they might decide I choose Gini instead of entropy. My Gini looks approximately like entropy, but it's computed 10 times faster. That's the idea. you have this choice. Some people will call it, that's another hyperparameter of the decision intelligence where you use the entropy function or the Gini function. Hyperparameter.
And the probability here means 1 divided on...
Exactly. Now let's do this probability on the board for these two cases that we just had. So that we see. Okay, now, this case. So here probability of belonging to one class and the other is 50-50, yeah? Half points are in one class, so probability of circles 1/2, probability of triangles 1/2. So P1 is 1/2, P2 is 1/2. Yeah, two classes. Now that's our parent. So now we need to compute the entropy of this parent in the formula. Entropy of the parent. So we take 1/2, substitute here, so 1/2 give us 1. The entropy of the parent is 1. Then we substituted P over here, 1/2. We can do it directly in the function plot, and we got that entropy function is equal to 1 for P equal to 0.5. Everybody with me? So, the information gain for the first example is going to be, for the parent node, is going to be equal to 1. Now we need to compute the average of the children nodes, and there are two children nodes, so we will need to compute the average of the two nodes. Now let's figure out what are the probabilities for the children node. So here, probability for this class is 1, probability for the other class is 0. Here it's the opposite. So now let's go and see where we have 0 on the graph. So entropy of 0 is 0, entropy of 1 is 0. So we have the average entropy of the children, 0 plus 0, 1 minus 0 is 1. So the information gain for putting that feature at this level 3 is 1. That's perfect information gain, because now we have perfect classification. Information gain is the maximum, is 1. Information gain is a number between 0 and 1. If information gain is 0, we are not gaining any information by putting that feature at this level 3. If the information gain is 1, we are doing immediately correct classification. Everybody with me? So for this, putting this feature at this level 3 gives us information gain of 1. Now let's do it for this 3. So for the parent it's the same, yeah, half and half. Substitute 0.5 here, we get the information gain of the parent is 1. So second case, first case, information gain again for the parent is 1. Now we need to figure out what happens in the entropy of the children. And here is also 1/2, 1/2. So 1/2 give us 1. Over here, plus 1. 2 divided by 2, 1 minus 1 is 0. So information gain for that case is 0. So it's useless to put this feature at this level 3 because we are not gaining any information. Information gain is 0. And of course, there will be cases in between. So, when we decide which feature to push at the next level of the tree, we take all features, we compute the information gain for each of those, and choose the feature with the largest information gain. In this case, this will be 1 because it's perfect information gain. Typically, we will have like 0.9, 0.6, we will have numbers between 0 and 1. And all what you do, you choose the feature that has the highest information gain among all features to put at that level of the tree. And after you go and do the same for each of the next nodes. To grow your tree down, down, down. Just computing the information gain based on the entropy function. On the Gini function. Again, that's a heuristic. Because when you decide this, in the information gain computation, you're not taking what is going possibly underneath. You're just limiting your analysis to one level of the tree. Heuristic. If you want to basically find the best possible feature to put the next level, we need to try what's going underneath, so we need to build the whole tree down by computing all the combinations, but that's impossible. That's what it will take. All combinations of the features at every level of the tree will take forever to try all combinations. Trying combinations hard, that's why we limit at every level, we don't look beyond. We just try 1,000 features at each level. 1,000 here, 1,000 next level, 1,000 next level. But any number multiplied by 1,000 is much more number of combinations. So we use, let's say that our tree has n levels multiplied by 1,000. This number is still relatively small to this. If you want to try all possible combinations. Everybody with me on that? Again, that's why heuristic. We try this number of possibilities instead of this number of possibilities when building the tree. Of course, putting some information, because here is a perfect information. We build the best possible tree. Here we are trying much smaller number of combinations. We will not build a perfect tree, but that's what it is. That's a heuristic algorithm for minimizing the error function for decision trees. Information gain is an approximation of the error, but it's not the perfect approximation because we don't analyze what happens underneath this level.
What does it mean, heuristic?
Shortcut.
Heuristic means, I'll say it in Ukrainian, евристичний алгоритм. Тобто алгоритм, який працює, ніколи не дасть гарантію, що ви знаєте найкращий розв'язок. Це називається евристичний алгоритм.
Rule of thumb.
Yeah, probably heuristic algorithm is the algorithm that doesn't have any guarantees of convergence to the true optimal. So that algorithm doesn't give us a guarantee to find the best possible error, the smallest possible error. But it runs much faster than the exact algorithm. Remember in that combinatorial optimization program, so the heuristic algorithm was introduced additional constraints to remove the areas of the physical region that cannot contain the optimal solution. That's a heuristic. It's not guaranteeing that you find the best possible optimal. But it runs much faster than doing all these combinations that you would need to do otherwise.
But there are lots of practical dangers with heuristics, though.
Exactly, but we have no other choice. Otherwise you wait forever for your algorithm to finish training. There's no other choice. And that's what people come up with. Basically, based on the entropy function, compute the information gain and use it as an approximation of how much we can reduce the error at each level of the tree. Again, that's an approximation of the error at each level of the tree.
Again, the main idea to go to some level. If, let's say, information gain is low some threshold, don't go further and go to another.
Exactly. When you build this tree, going from one level to another, start from this level, build that level, after you go to each of those, build another levels. At each level, you just try all features, you don't need to look underneath of that features. Because potentially, let's say, just an example. So you found that one feature has, X3 has information gain of 0.9 and X25 has information gain of 0.91. Information gain. Yeah, we'll put this at that feature 25 at that level of the tree because it has slightly big information gain. But if you did the full analysis, it makes you be advantageous to put this because with all the things underneath it give you much smaller error in general. But for that you need to build the whole tree and try all the combinations to figure it out. But you limit yourself just to analysis at a single layer without looking what happens underneath and trying all the combinations. That heuristic allows you to not try all combinations, just looking at the features itself without thinking what's going beyond underneath in the next layers of the tree.
So presumably there's methods that are in between that, where you try one level down, or you do two instead of just one.
Yeah, you can. Even so, I didn't see that people use that in practice. Basically, as soon as you even try to do that type of stuff, it's going to be much slower, probably 10 times slower to build the tree. So you need to wait 10 times longer. And potentially the gain will be marginal if you really look at two levels instead of one level. So if you really want to get a huge improvement, you probably need to do all this. Otherwise, as I have seen, those heuristics are pretty good.
Have they tested those?
Sorry?
Have they tested those heuristics? They sort of say,
yeah.
I think it works out. Yeah.
And that's why, so as I remember, like 5 probably major heuristics based on all those ideas, very, very similar. This is the main one that most of the trees are using, but there are variants of decision trees. And basically, nobody really now looks at those variants of the decision tree algorithms. Everybody uses something like this just because you cannot gain too much and cannot lose too much. So why bother?
If I may, this probability of light is not normally distributed.
Oh, this is the distributor. So it's not really a probability in the strict sense. It's a proportion of the number of elements in class 0, 1. So yeah, you can kind of call it probability of belonging to class 0, 1. It's a proportion of the circles and proportion of the triangle, which is 0.5. You can kind of think about it as kind of probability of belonging to one class or the other, but at the end it's a proportion to be strict. Proportion is kind of probability, but yeah, strictly from statistical terms, P is not a probability, it's just a proportion. I somehow tend to call it probability, being imprecise. Yeah, mathematicians and statisticians will beat me for that. I'm not a mathematician or computer scientist, that's why I use all these terms really vaguely. So people that are strict, they'll kill me. We have this problem in Ukrainian diaspora. When you do presentations in Ukrainian over there to the diaspora, some people don't care about the topic of presentation, what they were saying. They're saying that you use Ukrainian language correctly, that you were correct. And they come and say, oh, you use this word incorrectly. Maybe you have talked about, helping kids in the Ukraine. Oh, but who cares about that? You use this word in Ukrainian incorrectly. You shouldn't do that. That's pretty much what mathematicians may do with people who are not using mathematics precisely. But we are computer scientists. AI professionals, we don't need to, those things don't really matter whether you call this strictly or non-strictly, yeah. And as soon as I understand the meaning, that's more than enough.
But this form will be, and this entropy formula can be applied not only for situation when you have two classes, but also to...
Exactly, but you will substitute each PI into here, and after, when you do this, you get something like that. Yeah, that's right. Actually, because sum of this is going to be equal to 1 in any case, so that should be okay actually. Yeah, for 2 it's easy because if it's 0.2, the remaining is 0.8. If you have 3 classes, it should look very similar. You just need to figure out, because sum of the proportion is always sum up to 1. So if your tree is not binary, I'm not sure if you need maybe small changes if your tree is beyond binary. So this definitely works for the binary tree when you have 2 categories. For 3 categories, maybe you cannot plot it, but the formula is the same. It's a round plot.
You can do 1 versus all to satisfy 3 categories.
So when we build 3, when we build decision tree, 2 categories is always enough.
The thing is, that's a wrong plot for 3 categories, otherwise it's the same. The formula doesn't change, but when you have 3 categories and you want to plot this into dimensions, that function. Essentially, this function is one-dimensional because everything is normalized to 1. For 2 classes, the P2 is automatically 1 minus P1, so you can plot it in 1 dimension. Essentially, this is the dimension of P1. And if you P1, P2, and P3, you can go and plot this in 2 dimensions, and the shape doesn't really change, it will still something like that. And the formula doesn't change, just the plot is incorrect, of course, for the case of trees with 3 or more leaves. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, now, what we need to do next? We decide the algorithm that decides which feature to equal which level of the tree, and that's really all that we need for the categorical features. How about the numerical features? For numerical features, we need to decide on which number to split. So in our example was 15 years, but why not 14 years? Why not 25 years of age? So we need to decide what do we do to determine that bound for the trees that contain, let me go back to that, for the trees that contain numerical features. Because for the features that are categorical, you go left or right, as soon as you put this there, that's all what you need. If you decide to put numerical feature instead of the tree, you also need the split. What's best? 15 years, 14 years, 15.9 years. So you need to be able to compute this optimal number. Yeah? So that will be our next and last step in building decision trees. And to decide which number is the best, surprise, surprise, we are going to be computing the error, the mean squared error. That's nothing more than that. Now let's go step by step. Okay. So this in this example, so we have how many examples? 5 examples, and that will be the example for the fair amount. That's our target variable, and the distance is our fish. So basically, here we need to decide on which fair amount to split. If distance greater than any number x, so what is the number x to split on? Yeah, that's what we'll need to decide. Now that's the root node. This is in that case, if the distance is bigger than x, so the fair amount is equal to some number y. If the distance is smaller than x, or true. Yeah, if it's bigger than x, we output z, so our target variable is equal to z. If it's less than x, we output the target variable is equal to capital 1. And then those are the leaf nodes. Okay, so let's try just with a number. Let's pick any number. 2.5. 2.5 is here. We split on the distance 2.5 and try to understand what's going on. So, now when we basically decide about the split, we need to decide what to output for the left node and what to output for the right node, which is target variable. Now, what is the most important variable for y and z? On the idea that those should minimize the mean squared error. Okay, what would be the mean squared error if y is equal to 4 and z is equal to 5? Let's calculate the mean squared error and see what it is. Mean squared error, remember, formula from yesterday is the target variable minus the prediction squared, summing up all examples and taking the average. Now let's real variable, liquid value, and because we have 5 examples, so we unroll it into 5 examples, the sum, and just need to substitute the numbers. Let's do that. Okay, so here our true value is 2. Yeah, but our model predicts 4. That's what we decided. Y is equal to 4. 2 minus 4 squared. For the next example, for the second example, our model predicts 4 and the true value of y is 4. 4 minus 4. Now next, for the third example, so 5 and 5, 5 minus 5. For this, the true value is 4. Our model predicts 5. Yeah, 4 minus 5. And here is 5 and 5, 5 minus 5. So the mean squared error is this formula. We can finish the computations, and we get blah, 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 we get 1. So mean squared error is equal to 1 for these particular choices.
How did we forecast y in this case?
Or we just started from anything. So that's basically now we'll need to figure out how we really find the smallest possible mean squared error. Now we just computed it for randomly choosing the split, 2.5. Just any split. Let's compute the mean squared error. That's the first step. Now we need to figure out what is the best split to minimize the mean squared error.
And why not to apply regression here?
You can apply
neural network. Yeah.
You can apply more complex. Yeah, you can apply a minimization algorithm here. So we'll that's what is done in practice. Just I'll show you manually for now how we arrive at the optimal point. But yeah, you can do minimization here. Even so, it's again, it's
y hat is what is average, or what is y hat in this?
Y hat is the prediction of our model. So this what it outputs.
But why is different 4 and 5?
Because you are building the tree, so if the distance is greater than 0.5, you output the fare is $4. If the distance is greater than 2.5, you output the fare distance is 5. If the distance is less than 2.5 meters, you output the fare amount is 4. So you need to decide about what to output here.
Well, it's we don't know it.
We don't know, but that's as soon as you basically put the numbers there, you know how to compute the mean squared error. That's our first step. Now the next step would be what should be there, what should be output there. How do we optimally compute those? That's the next what we're going to do. So far what we did for fixed values, as soon as you fix the threshold over here for this feature x, and as soon as you fix the output for the left node and for the right node, we know how to compute the mean squared error. Now let's figure out, can we find a better split and the better prediction to minimize the mean squared error. That would be the next step. Okay, so for x equal to 2.5, y equal to 4, z equal to 5, mean squared error is 1. Can we find the better values of y and z? That's the first step before we even start changing the threshold. Okay, let's try, for instance, y equal to 3. Again, we compute the mean squared error, blah, 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 now it's equal to 0.6, it's smaller. So y, output in y equal to 3 instead of y equal to 4 was better. But is it the best, or we still can find something better? 0.6. Now let's change that from 5 to 4.66. Recompute, okay, even smaller, 0.53. And that's now the smallest mean squared error for the fixed threshold 2.5. That would be our t when we fix the threshold to 2.5. If distance is smaller than 2.5 kilometers, the pair is equal to 3. If the distance is bigger, the pair is equal to 4.66. That's the best prediction that minimizes the mean squared error for a fixed threshold value of 2.5 for the best split. Everybody with me so far? Now, is 2.5 really the best split? Or we can find a better split to have a smaller mean squared error. How do we do that? How do we choose a split in the first place? So what are the possible values for the split now? Can be here, 0.5, 1.5, and so on. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 possible values for the split. Yeah? That we can try. And then it doesn't matter. Well, as soon as you move in between, it's the same. So you can put 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, it doesn't really matter. For the examples that we have, just do it in the middle. Okay, are these meaningful? First, are these even possible candidates? 0.5, 5.5. No, those are useless. Those cannot be a good split. So let's remove those. Let's just leave those candidates in our consideration. We already tried 2.5. We found the smallest mean squared error. Now let's try others running this optimization. So here it was, the mean squared error was 0.53 for the split at 2.5 units, kilometers. Now, basically, let's try 1.5. In that case, yeah, that's the optimal y is equal to 2, and the optimal z is equal to 4.5. The mean squared error is equal to 0.2. We put it there. After we try 3.5 split, compute, run the optimization problem. We got 1.03, and we tried the last split to 4.5. The mean squared is 0.95. So that's it. We computed smallest mean squared error for all possible splits, and the smallest one is 0.2. So we choose the split of 1.5 units because it has smallest possible mean squared error, and that would be our decision tree now. So we have chosen the split for this numerical feature distance. 1.5 is the split, and here we output the fair amount equal to 2, and here we output the fair amount is equal to 4.5. So that's how we deal these numerical features. We just minimize the mean squared error for those. Yeah, of course, after that we can start going even further and try building the decision tree. One thing to remember, you can put the same feature at multiple levels of the tree. Nothing prevents you from that. It's not restricted that if you decide to put this decent feature there, you cannot put the next level tree. You can. And that's what happens in practice. Yeah? Features can appear at the multiple levels of decision tree. Okay, summarizing decision trees. Pros, easy to interpret, can handle numerical and temporal features, can handle missing data, because missing data can be just another category. That's all. Uses only the most important features. When we build the tree, it's automatically by selecting the features with the highest information gain, it uses the most important features. Can be used on very large or very small data. Cons, can overfit or underfit. We need to take care of this bias variance trade-off. Cannot model interaction between features. Yeah, cannot model the interaction between x1 and x2 unless you engineer a new feature x1 is multiplied by x2 and put it as a new feature. So again, there is no automatic feature engineering. But for regression we didn't have that, and of course for GNTs we don't have that. And as you'll see later, for neural nets it's automatic. So neural nets can automatically engineer features for you based on the features that you feed into neural nets. It can automatically engineer a combination of the features neural net. Not decision trees, not regression. Large trees, yeah, with hundreds of threads can be difficult to interpret, but still there is a logic. So, decision tree algorithms is probably, is very, very popular because of two reasons. Runs fast and very, very interpretable. You unroll the logic. So if this and this, you can explain in court. If you self-driving car, use the decision tree algorithm, and the next thing happened, you can go in court and explain why your algorithm made that decision. That's what we will unfortunately lose with neural nets. That unrolling of decisions. Because the rule that outputs the tree is just the logic that everybody understands. If this is way bigger than this, do this. If that is more than this, do that. The logic is there of the decision making. So you can interpret it.
Autonomous cars use decision trees?
No, autonomous cars typically use a combination of multiple algorithms for many, many purposes. But the problem, one of the problems, because nowadays the most universal machine learning algorithm is deep learning, neural nets. But those are not explainable, you'll see. You cannot unroll the logic. When you put one layer of when you basically in the neural nets, what you do, you take a nonlinear function of a nonlinear function at every layer. If you have 100 layers and you take a nonlinear function of a nonlinear function of a nonlinear function 100 times, you cannot unroll it after and explain what's going on. All the logic will not be human anymore. It's just too much nonlinearity is taken over and over so that you can unroll the logic of the neural nets and put it in as a rule why the decision was made. So pretty much decision trees are algorithms that you can explain. Neural nets are the black box algorithms. You cannot explain that logic in court. It's just too complex.
What is the classical usage of decision trees where it's used?
So pretty much decision tree is used for everything. So typically if you want to try something, you try three algorithms. Regression, decision trees, neural nets, and see which one is the best for you.
Churn rate, for example. It's very people for customer churn.
Fraud detection, customer churn, when customers will switch or not switch.
Yeah, so
that's the churn.
Pretty
much forever. I would answer, you try decision trees for every supervised machine learning problem. The same as you may want to try neural net, and at least you may want to try regression. That's the simple explanation. Try all these major algorithms for your supervised machine learning problem and see what you get.
And this decision tree, I understood that if you have something like regression, if you see there is some regression in your data, but this regression is not very linear, but with some drops, you can apply decision tree to split this regression.
Not really. You can apply the ensemble. So what you are talking seems like gradient boosting ensemble algorithm decision trees. When you apply your decision tree iteratively to the residuals that returned by the previous decision tree. But another thing. So again, if you want to model a nonlinear pattern in your data, first thing you will need to engineer nonlinear features. You may introduce the squares or the interactions between the features, add these new features, do this feature engineering, and after that, you can model nonlinear things. But you need to do it manually. So you need to model these new features, engineer those manually, and put it into your machine learning model.
Are there domains where decision trees work best? Other areas where decision trees are the best?
Pretty much. The rule would be very simple between mostly decision trees and neural nets. So if you need something to run fast, decision tree. If you can afford to wait for days, probably neural net may be your choice. If you need to be able to explain what's going on, decision trees. If you don't care about explainability of your algorithm, potentially neural nets. If you and the third reason is explainability, speed, and accuracy. So in many cases, basically decision trees will give you the best accuracy, even better than neural nets. But in some cases it's open. So that's essentially the three things that you need to put into consideration when choosing the algorithm. Accuracy of the algorithm, explainability, you need it or not, how much time you can afford to train your algorithm. Do you have minutes or you have days? How fast you need to make those decisions?
And about probability, when we discussed classification yesterday, we received not only class but also probability of the class. In decision tree, I think there is also some possibility to extract this probability.
You can infer it, yes. You can infer this probability of feature importance. Pretty much what is feature importance, or kind of, you can convert this decision to the probability by just seeing what you get at the leaf nodes, and you can compute the probability. Another thing is, if you want to do the feature importance, what is feature importance for decision trees? For each feature, you sum up the information gains. You put your feature at this level, it has this information gain. You put it at the other, it's information gain. You sum up the information gains, and that's an importance of the feature. That's also kind of intuitive for decision trees. So you can get the probabilities from decision trees. It's not that straightforward for the regression. That just outputs the probability directly for you, logistic regression, I mean. But you can compute it by looking at how many examples were classified correctly or not correctly at the leaf nodes, and basically compute the probability from that. Okay, that's all for decision trees, and we may still look at. Now we have the break, yeah? Let's take the break, and after look at the Jupyter notebooks for decision trees, and after neural nets, and after unsupervised machine learning.
And random forest is neural network or ensemble?
Random forest is ensemble, the same ingredient is ensemble, and typically for ensembles, it's an ensemble of decision trees. It doesn't make sense to put ensemble of neural nets because neural nets itself is an ensemble. Multiple functions are nodes in the net. So essentially, neural net, if by itself, is already an ensemble of multiple functions being stuck in the computational graph. Yeah, good question.
But about the probability in the decision tree, you said that I can calculate the probability by comparing the correctly classified and incorrectly classified. But it is not the same as we received yesterday result from the classification. In classification, we received forecast without any comparison with actual figures. Без всякого сравнения с actual, мы уже знали, с какой вероятностью мы предсказываем, что это 70 на 30. Правильно?
Здесь то же самое. Давайте посмотрим на пример. Давайте возьмем примерчик.
С information gain можно что-то выдавить такой же похожий.
Сейчас мы и выдавим с этих деревьев было. К примеру, когда мы там используем information gain, сейчас мы возьмем эти деревья и из них сразу и выдавим.
Потому что это же второй вопрос возникает. Первый вопрос, какой класс, второй вопрос, какой вероятность.
Вот смотрите, здесь будет это самое. Если у вас, обычно понятно, что в decision tree в конце не будет профиль классификации, да, 100%. У вас еще какие-то будут там, какие-то там. То есть и это и есть ваша вероятность. Здесь она на самом деле 100% на один и 0 на другой. Вот здесь так. А вот в этом случае у вас уже вероятность будет 50 на 50. Вот и вы дадите 50, ну 50. Ну а как оно будет что типа 60 на 70, вот вы это и будете выдавать как вашу probability. Только надо будет еще по всем нодам это скомбинировать. То есть с этого вот, с этих лип нодами можно посчитать probability. Надо будет там немножечко подшаманить, подумать на точной формулой, но вот что такое должно работать. В данном случае probability будет просто 50 на 50. Ну это просто дурной экзамен, понятное дело. То есть, скорее всего, мы что-то будем получать там сюда, и можно будет выдавить там 70 на 30, 80 на 20 вот этих leaf nodes. Да. Можно.
Да, в классификации же мы тоже понимали вероятность по дистанции от этой,
Ну да, там нам алгоритм напрямую выдавал вероятность. Тут алгоритм нам напрямую выдавал классификацию 0 или 1. Вот в этом разница.
Error, cost function здесь получается...
Здесь минимизируется не напрямую. То есть мы ее напрямую даже не записывали, мы записывали эту хьюристику с помощью information gain, который не напрямую минимизирует.
Понятно.
Да. В том-то и дело, что у нас слишком будет ее сложно оптимизировать cost function, поэтому мы на нее...
Она какая-то есть.
Ее можно записать. Просто будет такое количество комбинаций, какой ставить на какой уровень, что мы ее просто никогда не оптимизируем. А так она та же самая. Mean squared error predictions, там минус то, что выдает наша модель. То есть она не меняется. Просто ее нет смысла минимизировать напрямую, потому что мы никогда не получим это решение, слишком много комбинаций, проблема не конвертится. Decision trees. Let's look at some Jupyter notebooks.
Or lecture?
Lecture 8 still. That's our last lecture for today.
Do we have a date for the exam in this course? Is that the thing we're coming at?
Up to you. You choose the date. I'm okay with anything that you choose. So Katerina, our TA, will administer the exam. I don't
And what is the
care about the date.
test? Just test?
Yeah, it's probably going to be 1 hour and a half.
Multi-choice test?
No, we will be solving small problems, small practical problems like linear regression with one
In
feature.
Python. In Python.
No Python on the final exam. So the project is in Python actually.
No.
We can talk actually about project. If you, that's a good thing.
Yes.
But for the final exam, solving small practical problems, and that's it.
Not in Python. But
Not in Python.
in Excel,
How to solve it?
how?
By hand.
By hand.
This calculator, of course, not really by hand. If I give you linear regression with one feature, so what do you need to do to solve it? Well, it's a linear system of equations 2 by 2. You can solve it with a calculator.
Of course, yeah. Okay.
These types.
They should hire data scientists.
But it's like
We can probably even make it open, book open anything.
But maybe it makes sense to provide more time, yeah? So this is I don't understand, to be honest, this short times, yeah, but you don't have time to think usually.
Yeah, maybe not 1.5, maybe 2 hours, so we don't want to make it too long, but also don't want him to make it too short. So, and for the project, yes. So for the project, course project. So that's what posted on the Moodle. So that's a course project, and again, for deadlines, I do not care too much. I put some deadlines here, but you may, all what I care, let's do a project presentations on some evening. You choose the date, again, up to you. So you will do it in teams of 2 people each, so 4 teams in total. So, and the course project is basically will be individual part and the team part. So you do your modeling individually, and after together, 2 people in the team put together a presentation based on the results of your model. So you may do different models. So what you have to do in the project, which is 60% of your mark, is essentially redesign curriculum of this course, redesign curriculum of your program based on analytics, and propose your own idea about EdTech startup related to analytics. So one possibility is to do that. So data sets that you can use. You can use data sets about online job postings. You have these example codes that, for instance, parse Indeed.ca to extract the skills that are in demand on the market for data professionals. So, and after that, based on those skills that are in demand on the market, you propose redesign of the curriculum of this course, what to exclude, what to include. You visualize this curriculum in the way you want, using the tools you want, whatever, Power BI, Excel, any other visualization tool, including Python. And you do the same for the whole curriculum of this program. So we have the curriculum of the MBAI program, based again on the skills that are in demand on the market. You can propose an updated curriculum. So if you look at the current curriculum that you all have access to, so those are the courses that are proposed at the program, and that's the realization of the courses. And based on your analytics, I would like you to redesign both this course and the structure of the program. So which courses to remove, which courses to add. What should be the curriculum of the courses that you propose to add or to keep?
For the entire program.
Yeah.
Can we get access to the number of students enrolled at any period of time?
Oh, that's you are the students who enroll in this program. So Yeah, and you have access to the current syllabus, total syllabus of the courses that are proposed in the program, so you can look at those. But the idea is applying analytics to really identify which skills would be important for you as data professionals to learn. So what is missing currently, what needs to be added based on the job market trends. And for the job market trends, my proposal, web scraping of the Indeed website. You may add scraping of the WorkUR website or any other online job postings website, Glassdoor, anything else. And by scraping those job vacancies, you basically select the skills that are important on the market. And all what you need to do for that, you basically use the examples in Python that are provided in this course. You assemble your Python code not by really coding, but by taking those examples that I have shown you and putting those together into your own solution. So it's not really, probably it's not even coding, it's just based on the examples and the web scraping examples that you have, put together your own system to really do this. So for instance, let's take this example that web scrapes the Indeed.ca website. You may web scrape Indeed.ua website. You may web scrape Indeed.com website for the US market. So again, your choice. You may see what job titles you should look at. Data analyst, AI professional, data scientist. Well, again, your choice. And after that, what you do from this web scraping, you get this. You basically get the job description. This is the text. You get the company name, you get the job type, you get the location, and after what I showed here as one particular exam, I extracted the software knowledge that is required to those vacancies, and I plotted this graph. So again, that's what you can do, but you can look at other skills. Look at the soft skills, look at communication skills, look at problem solving skills, look at software outside of this. Is Power BI useful? Is Tableau useful? Is knowledge of deep learning useful, stuff like that. So again, you have everything what you need to look at the available examples in Python and adapt it for your own purpose to solve this project. And you can do a bunch of other things. I'll show you later. You can do clustering with those skills. That will be when we talk about clustering in an hour. I can show you an example of how you can cluster skills that you extract from the same web scraping. Here you just visualize those. Or another proposal that you may use, and that's what I put in the project description as well. Where is it? Yeah, you can use the Kaggle Data Scientist Survey if you want to do either from the previous year or from this year, if you want to do the supervised machine learning. So the target variable in that case will be a salary of data scientists that you have there. We also have, okay, let's look at this. So Kaggle had their server of data scientists. So we got around 20,000 examples in their data set. Let's put it in the browser. You decide how much time you are willing to spend on that. You may go simple, web scraping, or you may try to challenge yourself and try to do the supervised machine learning based on the Kaggle data set. So what they had? They had the data, they had basically the survey where you go and fill the answers. So here, are you a student? That's one feature. You put student, not student here in the survey. So where they put, so what is the primary tool that you use at work or school to analyze data? For instance, Python and so on. So you have all these features, and you have one of the variables here, the salary level. So you can try to use salary level as your target variable, and look at what are the features that can explain your salary level, and do the modeling of the salary levels. And based on the features you find important for having high salary, you include those into the curricula of the courses that you propose for this program. Again, that's going to be harder than just doing exploratory analysis with scraping, but if you want to challenge yourself, we have enough examples. We have, you stick this data, and you need to still to clean it and so on, but you stick it to the decision tree examples that we have. You stick it to the regression examples that we have. Nothing more than that. You have examples of regression, logistic regression or linear regression. You just take these columns, which are features, clean those out, missing values, things like that, and after try to predict the salary. Which of these skills, which of these features are important to have high salary. And that will tell you which skills are important, and you include those in the curriculum of the courses that you propose. After that, use your knowledge of Power BI and Tableau from the course of Maxima Brizan to visualize either your curriculum or of the program or the curriculum of this particular course. So, read the project description. There is nothing really hard in this, and it's quite open. You can look at the examples of other similar programs. Again, see what they propose and can you borrow something useful from them. You may even do automatic web scraping of those websites. Find 20 other programs similar to this one, web scrape their curricula, and use that as your data source for design. You say, okay, because this program from Harvard, and this program from MIT, and this program from Stanford teaches this skill, that's an important skill, we should include it in this program or in this course. Yeah, quite open. Use the data set that are suggested, find your own data sets, spend 1 day on it, or spend 1 week on them. Again, up to you. I know you're all busy, and it will be a decision about how much time you afford to spend. No restriction from my side on that. And you have all the tools that are necessary. All the examples, we have like whatever, 30 or 40 Jupyter notebooks for this course that you can just reuse with this new data set. Again, it's not even programming, just assembling your data analytics solution from the examples that you are provided in Python.
So Mr. Bizan called this microprogramming.
It's probably, yeah, we can call it microprogramming.
Macro, yeah.
Microprogramming, yeah.
Sorry, macro.
So from technical point of view, we should analyze the data, scratching or other programs.
Yeah.
Based on this, we should begin technical part of the task. We sort, we cluster, and after that, we present our findings. Exactly. We consider that 20% of the course we should allocate to this, 10% to that, like this.
Yeah, so there, finish. So you may stop even here. Let's explore the analysis. Here we still know it. You extracted that in 60% of the vacancies, Excel is required. In 35% of the vacancies, Python is required. You may even stop there and say, okay, Excel is used in 60% vacancies, we need a course about Excel. And that's what we should teach in this course. Or, basically Python is the main programming language, so this and this and this course should be in Python. That's because of this. Or R is a second major programming language, so probably some other courses should mention something about R, or even have an overview of R. Or maybe, again, that's your decision. You may be as simple as that. In that case, you're not doing even modeling, you do exploratory analysis of your data. We didn't run any algorithm, it's just frequencies, plotting frequencies, and based on that, okay, it's frequently required in the jobs, or should be included in the courses. If you want to be fancy, as I said, you may do clustering of skills, you may do supervised machine learning of skills. Here are your skills, here is your salary level, your target variable, run linear regression, logistic regression. Again, if you have time, feel free to do the modeling as well. But if not, it's okay if you stop at the exploratory analysis of your data and still justify. That's already the justification why skills are important, found in the job vacancies. You have the script to basically extract those, web scrape those from Indeed. So adapt the script for your own website, or for Indeed from Ukraine, or for US market, because that's probably where all the trends are going, and if that happens in US, so it's going to happen in Ukraine in 1 year or 2 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, my question is about the mark. You said we can make the regression and deep learning or we can stick only to the clustering, let's say. So, but will it impact the mark or not?
Okay, so those are requirements about the mark. So let's review those. Okay, so the project is worth 60 points. 40 points for individually, for each group member, for your analysis and report, and 20 points for the presentation, which you do in groups of 2 people. So, now, what to do? You individually submit your Jupyter notebook with your analysis, with some explanations what you do. You individually submit a 2 to 3 page consulting report that summarizes your findings for part 3, your EdTech startup, that you propose based on the analytics. And as a group, you do a business-oriented presentation of your findings, putting the results of your analysis and your reports together into the presentation and present it. So you may split in the group into 2. Okay, I'm going to redesign this current course, and the second person is going to design the curriculum of the whole program. And each after that, each has your individual EdTech startup. Based on Olympic startup can be, we decide to propose a boot camp based on our analysis that Excel is needed in the industry. We decide to propose Excel boot camp. Oh, that's my EdTech startup. So based on that, you do the presentation and present for 12 to 15 minutes as a group of 2 people. So 4 groups, 2 people each. Individual part, Jupyter notebook and the 2 to 3 page report. And the group part is the presentation.
And who's the imagined audience of the presentation?
Business audience. Yeah, that's also written somewhere down there.
So we're trying to get...
So everything, yeah, in the presentation don't be technical, show the results, show visualizations of what you found. Anything technical goes to Jupyter notebook with explanations, and that's it.
So we're trying to get funding.
Pretty much. That's a consulting report. Or the pitch, or the proposal. Yeah.
Oh, I can do this hardest part.
And
that's how many points you get for one.
2 people can stick to absolutely different strategy. After that, we should put everything in one presentation.
Also, of course, you will need to consult how you do your coding part, your Python part, so that when you put into the presentation, those can be a single presentation. That's you need to decide with each other what you will do in the Jupyter notebook. So that's why, again, you can split into groups as you want, no restrictions from my side. The only restriction is each group is 2 members. So you are 8, so it should be 4 groups.
Who's that?
Again, now, for this, my expectation that you need between 1 day and go as far as you want. You can spend the whole week if you want, or you spend just 1 day if you decide to do so.
Let's make a random choice.
Again, I'm not going to verify how much time you spend working on the project. So what we're going to mark is your Jupyter notebook, your report, and your presentation.
And Katya can answer on all our questions.
Yes, so, and we plan to have consultations for you about the course material, about the course project, and anything that you can expect the final exam. So you can set any sort of consultation with your individual, in groups, anytime that works for all of you. So if you need me, you tell me when to join and I join remotely.
Interesting.
Okay. Again, I don't want to be too hard on the project. I know all of you have your own life and stuff, but it cannot be too easy either because that's a master problem. So that's why you decide yourself. Where some of you may spend, let's say, 1 day, some of you may spend 1 week if you feel it's interesting for you to learn this additional stuff and you want to potentially apply it to your own project beyond this or whatever. So that's a practical project that I give you. There is some data sets that we provide for this project. There is some data sets that you can find yourself. You can web scrape the websites. That's your data sources. After that, you need to clean the data, prepare the data, and run a minimum exporter analysis of the data at the maximum machine learning algorithms based on that data.
Minimum exporter analysis, maximum the...
Yeah, it can be supervised machine learning, can be clustering, unsupervised machine learning. We'll still come to clustering, but then we will see one of the ideas that we have tried ourselves. Clustering of skills and designing courses based on clusters.
I think you showed it in the presentation.
I showed it in the presentation on Friday, but we'll look at it one more time. And there is a code for that. There is a clustering code, you just need to stick your own data into the clustering code that we have in the Jupyter notebooks. It's all there.
And
just data is yours and the ideas are yours.
And Kaggle competition, there is salaries in the Kaggle competition mentioned, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so we can...
But those are salary buckets, so you need to think what to do with those. And I can show you one. So what we have in Kaggle, let me actually show you some slides.
We should spend so much time because neural nets interesting.
Yeah, well, neural nets is what we'll need to discuss in any case. You don't need to go as fancy as neural nets in the project, and you will have a separate course on neural nets, more than one. So today we are just scratching the surface for neural nets. Okay, I'll show you some example about the salary data set. I will prepare it during the break and show you at the beginning of the next lecture. So you can actually use logistic regression for predicting the salaries. to do that classification problem and show you how. That's as simple. We know what is logistic regression. We have an example in the notebook how to run logistic regression. All what you would need to do, you need to prepare your data from the Kaggle data set. Decide what to do with features. Some of the features are categorical, how you convert those to dummy variables, stuff like that. That's what you need to do. Clean your data, missing values. Again, we went through that in the Titanic example yesterday, but of course you need to spend some time adapting that Titanic exam to your Kaggle data set, because the data there is different and you need to clean, you need to do feature engineering and think about that. But otherwise the process is the same, and that's the goal. You use these Python examples that we have for your own data set. Okay, so let's talk about neural net. Oh, I wanted to show the decision trees to Peter notebook instead of. Можете Jelly потянуть, да. Randomly. Okay, so we open this decision tree example. So in this decision tree example, it's a classification problem. That's exactly credit card fraud default problem. So we have the target variable whether that person defaulted on the credit card payments or not. 0-1 binary classification problem. 10,500 examples in this data set. So what are the features? Age, number of dependents, monthly living declared address, number of major derogatory report, number of minor derogatory report, whether the person owns or rent, monthly income, if the person is self-employed or not, income divided by number of dependents, ratio of monthly credit card expenditure to your yearly income, each monthly card extension, so on and so forth. So those are the features, and after that, what we can do with this, we use the scikit-learn decision tree classifier model to implement all this. So we read the data from this credit count data set from a CSV file that is provided and see all these features. They are whether defaulted or not. 0 means no default, 1 means default, age, and so on. So we split the data into two sets, training set and test set, the well as we did before, nothing new there. We drop some of the features which are not useful, according to your opinion. So split, so our target variable is this default column, so that's our target variable Y. Our features X are other columns in the data. And so initially we can just disregard split data in training and testing, we can just apply it to the whole data set. If you want to make it easier, and after that it's as easy as this. You run the decision tree classifier and you train the model, you do the fit.
But minimum sample leave 500.
Well, that's what we will need to discuss next. So, these two are the hyperparameters of the decision tree algorithm. So remember, we told that you choose two functions, entropy or Gini. That's one hyperparameter. In this case, we have chosen entropy. Yeah? Another choice is Gini, which is faster, and you may try to compare the results. Another is, I said, you can, second hyperparameter is size of the tree. So here you limit the size of the tree, minimum samples on the leaf node is 500. So each leaf node will have at minimum 500 examples in it. So that limits size of the tree. Instead of having one example on the leaf node, you have at the minimum 500. That's one hyperparameter that limits the size of the tree. Everybody with me? By changing this number, you change if the tree is very shallow or can be fully grown tree. Now let's run this. After we run fit the model, well, that's all, and it reports the results. And first, what we can look at the feature importance. As I said, that's based on this information ratio for each feature. The most important feature is income, 50% importance, income per capita, 70% importance, age, 10%, and so on. You see, some of the features are not even used in the tree, that's why we have importance of 0. Of course, if the feature is not used in the tree, its importance is 0.
Yeah, but if we reduce leaf to below 500, those would probably get picked up.
Of course, you can play with that hyperparameter, and that's what, as we discussed yesterday, computes your bias variance trade-off, and you can play with that. So now, bias variance trade-off. Well, let's first look at the tree that we get. You can visualize the tree. For that, you need to install this GraphPeace package on Windows or macOS, and this will be your tree. it's just too big to see. Let's see, I have plotted it here as an image. So this is going to be your tree. So you see the first feature that we decide to put at the top is the income. So if income is less than, that's monthly, I guess, yeah, to 2,100, you go here. If it's more, you go there. And it records this information gain the interest, yeah? After that, here it's, the feature is age. If age is less than 22 years, blah, blah, blah. So basically very intuitive, that's what we discussed. It puts features at the level. And features may appear at the multiple levels. The income is here, the income is there, as you see. So that's why the importance of income is information gain of income here, plus information gain of income there, plus information gain of income there. And that's the importance of each feature. How many places it was used and how much information gain it provided. Everybody with me? So that's pretty much it. Now, yeah, you limited the tree that the minimum number of samples at each leaf node, and then just to close the leaf nodes is the minimum 500. So here you have 522, 566. So that stops growing the tree because you require to have the minimum 500. Otherwise, it could have grown tree very, very large, and I will show you next. When we don't limit the size of the tree, that's what I do. I do next. So let me show. This is the tree that you get if you don't limit the size of the node. You see, that's a huge tree. You don't see much. Each of these is the node. Yeah, huge tree if you don't limit the size of the node. That's a fully grown tree for this number of features. How many features we have? Some like 15, yeah? And then we already have this huge tree. So if you don't exactly overfit it, if you do not limit the size of the tree, you overfit it. So that's why the hyperparameter to limit the size of the tree is very useful. And what happens is bias variance trade-off. So if you don't limit the size of the tree, what is bias, what is variance?
Variance is tiny, right? Variance is small.
No,
variance is big.
bias.
Bias
is small because you made the test precise. Of course, you will fit to in some data, but the bias is small, the variance is huge. If you limit the tree, we'll say to have one node, limited size to be very shallow. What happens in that case? Huge bias, but low variance. Almost no variance, yeah? That's a bias variance trade-off, and you can actually plot it as well, plot the graph that we did yesterday by tuning this hyperparameter. When you run this, limit the size of the tree. After change, let's limit the size of the tree, and so on. That's your hyperparameter. The size of the tree, that number is 500 that we put initially, so you just change that. So we have this. Yeah, we change this number, rerun, and that's tuning of your hyperparameter. After you, of course, need to verify it, you need to split your data into training and test, run it on the train data, do the hyperparameter, change it, test your error on the test data, and so on. The same as we did for the regression yesterday.
And what's this deciding? Like, how do we tell at the very beginning? How do we describe what decision this is trying to make?
Oh, then you set your target variable, which is the default, no default. That's a classification problem. Yeah, that's the decision that you're trying to make, and you have your features. So that's all what is, in my opinion, important in our case. Because it's a classification problem, you can also look at these confusion metrics. So it reports the model accuracy 83%. And after that, you can look at the false positives, false negatives here. So this is correct. This is predicted not default and true not default. This is predicted default and true default. And this is the opposite. So these are the false positives, I guess, and these are the false negatives. And like that. Again, and that's basically it. And here we did it already. We split the data into a training and testing. So we run our decision tree, but without actually limiting the size on the trained data, and we computed the accuracy on the test data as it should be. And that accuracy is 83%. Now you can try to do the cross-validation to improve it even more. And you can do the hyperparameter tuning instead of using the fully grown tree limited size, rerun. The same things as we did yesterday is regression. Just what's different, the meaning of the hyperparameter is different. In regression, it was this epsilon or lambda. Over here is the size of the tree. I know it's tough when you see it for the first time. Don't worry, you'll see the symmetry at least in the 2 more courses in this program. Again, those things need to be repeated again and again, and you need to work on those in order to understand. So that's why from the first time, I try to give you as much explanation and information, but don't expect that you understand that much material in one course. That's why we have multiple courses in the program, so that you digest this step by step. You will see it in other courses.
It's too scary to study more. No?
Study less. So, but again, the question, is it at least understandable at the high level? I know that it's too much material, that's for sure. No question about that. But we care more about understanding in this course. If something is not understandable, we should just spend more time on that instead of going to neural nets, for instance. Neural nets.
This is the easiest to understand, I think, of everything so far. Yeah.
And it's easier to understand using these examples on your own.
Okay, so let's actually, what I propose, let's leave neural nets at the end, but let's talk about unsupervised machine learning, about clustering. It's easier so that you don't get completely overloaded, and after we spend the last lecture, the last hour and 20 minutes talking about neural nets. Because I know that stuff. So it's still in the same lecture, but I'll just move from this neural net part to unsupervised machine learning part, and after we'll get back to the neural net part. We'll show, unsupervised machine learning. Well, that's easier to understand. Neural nets are still hard, so let's leave those two words there. So, unsupervised machine learning. As I said, there are a number of types of unsupervised machine learning algorithms. The major are clustering, dimensionality reduction, and association rules. We briefly mentioned association rules. We will not talk much about dimensionality reduction, but we'll talk about clustering. So what we do in clustering? It's unsupervised machine learning algorithm. There is no target value. But what we want to do, we still have our features, income and the amount spent, 2 features. And what we want to do, we want to cluster or group our examples into a number of clusters or segments or groups, whatever you call those. And after that, understand what each cluster means and work with it separately. That's the whole goal of clustering. Split your examples into groups, into clusters, and after that work with that separately. If those are your customers, you split all your customers into, let's say, 3 clusters, and after that you deliver a separate message to each cluster. If those are your voters, you split your voters to multiple clusters, and you deliver, for the marketing, you deliver a separate promotion to each cluster. If it's your voters, you deliver a separate message to your clusters. That's the whole idea. Very actively used, at least in marketing and in elections. Actually, both Trump and Zelensky use this clustering in the election campaigns. Actually, interesting stories as we start talking about those. So, for Trump, remember Cambridge Analytica story? So, what Cambridge Analytica did? They created a Facebook application, where people need to basically ask the questions, who have you been in the previous life? I'm exaggerating, but that's type of applications you see, questionnaires you see on Facebook. So after 200,000 people in the United States use that application on Facebook, so they get access to 200,000 profiles of Facebook profiles of people, But after they took the next step, they violated Cambridge Analytica Facebook agreement, and they got access to the profiles of the friends of those people who use the application. And they got access to around 50 million profiles. After that, they tried to match, of course, those profiles are users by themselves. They tried to match who of those 50 million people are voters voting in the United States elections. And I think it was like 10 million that they were able to match or something like that. Still, very large data set for them. After that, they did clustering on those voters, and they tried to deliver a separate message to each cluster. So for one cluster, there is a make, and you talk about, make America great again. For another cluster, we would make manufacturing, we'll put manufacturing jobs back on the market, and things like that. That's what you do. You design and deliver a separate message to each of the voters in each cluster. To each cluster, voters.
Build a wall.
Build a wall with Mexico. I don't know, something else. Keep the immigrants out of the US. So basically, That's another story how you design the appropriate message for each cluster. For that you need to get an understanding what are the properties of people in each cluster. That will be the next step after you do a cluster. For Zelensky, they didn't have Cambridge Analytica, so how did they collect the profile of voters? Any ideas? That's public information. That was published.
As I remember,
by Fedorov.
Start some to collect people who can support the team.
Exactly.
Like that.
They registered volunteers for the Zelensky campaign. On the website, they created the form, and you fill your personal information there. The problem is, of course, the sample of the voters that Zelensky got is not independent. There is dependency. Those are the people who support Zelensky. Yeah, that's right. That's why conclusions that they can make from that are hard to interpret. Because for the Trump, we just got 10 million random profiles of people. They not necessarily supported Trump. So from that point of view, the sample that they worked with was independent. There was no dependency. In Zelensky case, there is dependency. Those people who registered to volunteer for Zelensky campaign, they are probably supporters of Zelensky. But there is no better sample to get. You should work with the data that you can afford to get.
You should put up another thing saying volunteer to work against Zelensky.
Yeah. So in any case, even so, yeah, that was a much smaller sample, and that was dependent. They still did clustering. And after they targeted each cluster separate. That's what we did. For those details, they didn't disclose the details. They just disclosed, okay, that's how we collected those profiles, and we did clustering. They didn't disclose how they did clustering, but the technology is known. And after they try to design and target separate people in each cluster. Individually. Yeah, not individually. Each cluster with a separate messages. Again, nobody knows how good it worked, because you cannot really check how people voted, those people that targeted, but that's what they tried, and that's what Fedorov pretty much said. Yeah, who is now the Minister of Digital Transformation, yeah? Or who was the SMM chair of the Zelensky presidential campaign. Now, though it's used. Now, the most famous algorithm for clustering is K-means clustering. How it works? So first, what K is? K is the number of clusters. You need to give as an input number of clusters to that algorithm. So for instance, K equal to 2 means. So you tell I should get 2 clusters, or I should get 3 clusters. That's what you choose. After that, what you do, you randomly split your data into 2 clusters. For example, 2 clusters. Or to initialize the algorithm. Or you randomly generate 2 cluster centers. After that, you have 2 random clusters, for instance, and you compute the cluster centers. What is the cluster center? Average across feature 1, average across feature 2, for the point in that cluster. And you get the mean across this feature and the mean across this feature, and you get this point. That's the cluster center. Everybody did just the mean of the coordinates of these points. You can convince yourself. So 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4 plus 5 divided by 6. And you get this one. Let's say for the second cluster. And after you check whether some of the points are closer to this new cluster center. So at this point is now closer to this cluster center and to that, so it will move to that cluster. So it becomes dark blue. So you got the new clusters, you calculate the cluster centers again and check if any point will switch to another cluster, and you stop the algorithm as soon as none of the points is moving to another cluster. Very simple algorithm. Everybody with me on that? Yeah. Basically nothing to more. That's how the algorithm works. It typically converges very fast. In this case, 6 iterations, 3 plus, you got your 3 clusters. Yeah, that's another illustration for the same algorithm. So you need to choose the number of potential clusters. Let's say equal to 2, initialize the cluster sentence randomly, or randomly split all your data points into 2 clusters. So that's 2 choices to initialize values. Either randomly generate cluster centers or randomly split points into 2 clusters. 2 ways to initialize. And after you calculate to which cluster each point is the closest, and that becomes one is green cluster, another is red cluster. You calculate the cluster centers. And after you repeat the process until none of the points is moving to another cluster. That's all. Now, how you choose the number of clusters k? And the answer is you don't know. Basically, there are some heuristical ways to choose, but at the end you don't know how many clusters you should be getting. So that's why I don't even want to concentrate on that. There are some heuristic rules, but at the end the answer is you don't know. Positivity campaign, should you get 3 clusters, 4 clusters, 5 clusters, 6 clusters? No idea. You just try 3, try to interpret those. You try 4, try to interpret those. You try 5, try to interpret those.
Depends on your ability to deal with the number of clusters.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, you won't probably try more than 10 clusters because you cannot have a separate message for more than 10 clusters.
10 minus 1.
Of course. One problem is, works nice for numerical features. What to do with categorical features? How you calculate distances for the categorical features?
Chi-square, no.
Now exactly the same as before. If you have categorical features, you need to convert those into numbers. And that's maybe not as straightforward. We discussed yesterday. If you have your degrees, bachelor, master, PhD, you may convert in numerical by number of years you need to study. But if you have your contacts on LinkedIn and their professions, how you define the distance between scientists and vice president? Or the distance between chief officer and the rector? Here, up to you. Nobody will tell you what's the best, you need to try. May ask experts, may try doing some natural image processing, may try whatever you want. Yeah, that's something to remember. As soon as you have categorical features in your clustering, you need to be able to define, to convert those into numerical features in order to be able to calculate distances between the points. And after you can do a wonderful clustering and use, for instance, clustering in LinkedIn to search for a job. You cluster your contacts into a bunch of clusters and you decide which cluster to contact to get your next job. One of the examples. So, in summary, what k-means clustering is doing, so basically it divides data into non-overlapping clusters, and the idea is that intra-cluster distances are minimized, so distances between the points inside the cluster are minimized, and the distances between the clusters are maximized. So essentially, exact formulation of the k-means clustering is an optimization problem, but because it's too hard to solve, we solve it as a heuristic. So k-means algorithm is a heuristics that you move if you are closer to another cluster center. But the idea is this, that's underneath the formulation is optimization problem, because it's too hard to solve directly. Now, one modification of the k-mean clustering, which is called fuzzy-C-mean clustering. You may want to allow some points to belong to more than one cluster. That's a modification of the k-means algorithm called fuzzy-C-means algorithm. So, how we... How much time do we have? Still 30 minutes still there of this lecture, so great, we'll finish clustering with this lecture and we have 1 hour 20 minutes for deep learning. Okay, so how we modify the k-means algorithm to allow the same point to belong to more than one cluster? So that's the idea. Now instead of just telling whether this point is closest to this cluster and to this, you define the probability of it belonging to this cluster, 95%, the probability belonging to this cluster, 5%, and the probability is inversely proportional to the distance. That's all.
And then you move the...
the
threshold.
Yeah, and after you need to decide about thresholds. Here is 90-10, here is 45-55. So typical threshold is, let's say, between 40 and 60, so if these numbers are between 40 and 60, this point will belong to multiple clusters. You need the threshold. So now again, so you have the two clusters and you calculate the cluster centers, the same as before, and you iterate until none of the points is moving to another cluster. That's all. Just simple modification of the k-means algorithm to allow for the points belonging to multiple clusters, fuzzy-C-means. Again, third type of clustering algorithm called hierarchical cluster or agglomerative cluster. Let's look at this example. Regions in Italy, and we'll actually discuss how this can be put into practice. So, how we can interpret the clusters. It's always, in this case at least, it's can be understood. So we have regions in Italy: Torino, Milano, Florence, Rome, Napoli, Bari, and we have these distances in kilometers between those. Now we know how to meet distances. Don't just in kilometers or on the roads or straight up to you or what you want to do. So what you do in hierarchical clusters? You look for the regions which are the closest in terms of distance. In this case happens to be Torino and Milano. You merge those into one cluster and you put it at the first level of the hierarchy, Torino and Milano, first level of the hierarchy. After that, now this is one cluster. You recompute the distances, treating Torino and Milano as one cluster, and you look again for the shorter distance. In this case happens to be between Rome and Napoli. So you merge those into one cluster, Rome and Napoli, and put that at the second level of the hierarchy. First level of the hierarchy, second level of the hierarchy. Everybody with me? And you continue. Now merge Napoli and Rome into one cluster, you compute the distances, find the shortest. Now it's the shortest is between our cluster Napoli-Rome and Bayern. Napoli-Rome, previous cluster, and Bayern, 255 kilometers. So you merge this into one cluster, put it at the third level of the hierarchy. So the previous cluster Napoli-Rome and Bayern, third level of the hierarchy. First level, second level, third level of the hierarchy. Continue. Wow, that's already fireworks. So now there are shortest distances between our cluster Bari, Napoli, Rome, and Florence. So you put it at the first level of the hierarchy, and you recompute distances, and now you just merge everything into one cluster, put it at the top level of the hierarchy. And next, if you want to know how many clusters you get, you take your horizontal line and you start moving it up and down, and the number of vertical lines that intersects is the number of clusters that you will get. So here it intersects 1, 2, 3 lines, so you get 3 clusters. First cluster is Torino, Milano, second cluster is Florence, and the third cluster is Bari, Napoli, and Rome. You move the line up, intersects 2, you get 2 clusters. You move down, intersects 4, you get 4 clusters, and so on. Now you decide by moving the line how many clusters you would like to get. Again, that's still your decision. Okay? Now, how you can interpret those? What type of decisions you can make based on these clustering results?
Sales regions.
Yeah, sales regions. Possibly. Logistics, yeah, where to build the warehouses. Maybe tourist destinations. Instead of separate advertising Torino and Milan, advertise those as a region. So visit both cities together and visit these 3 cities together. Get a number of applications. What a cluster. That's all. So second example, this hierarchical clustering, that's what I showed. Skills. So those are the skills that I extracted from and Olena Stalenska, who is the student of the previous cohort of the MBAI program, now doing her research internship at the University of Toronto in Canada, and I'm continuing this type of research. So this is one of our results. So what we did? Yeah, we extracted these skills. Now you see only not only technical skills, but also soft skills, creativity, project management, negotiations, consulting, communication, stuff like that. So we extracted both hard skills like programming languages, big data, CSS, stuff like that, and also both soft and hard skills. You build this hierarchical cluster, but to build it you need to define the distances between each skill, each pair of skills. How you do that? We did very simple. So if the skills, two skills can be found together in one job posting, distance between them is 0. If not, distance between them is 1. And after that, you calculate the average across 1,000 job postings. And that's the distance between 2 skills. How many times across 1,000 they found together in the same job posting?
Yeah, that's my intuition to be the opposite.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if they're both listed, it means that they're different enough that they need to name themselves.
See, so if the skills are found together, our idea is those should be taught together, and that's why those should be in the same cluster. That's why distance between is 0 if they found together in the same job posting. Those are related skills.
But if you were looking for someone to build, who was a woodworker, and said they can build like chests of drawers and houses, those 2 things are beside each other because it shows a difference between the skills. That's probably my intuition is the opposite.
Well, you can try that in your project. So what it gives you, so and how you interpret it. Possibly, yeah. Why not? Again, that's why we're here. There is no unique way to do things, and yeah, it's your interpretation, your idea. You go and check it with the data.
Yeah,
and you create your own startup, become rich, become the multi-billionaire.
You can only list 6 things, and so you want the 6 things to be as far apart from one another as possible in your job description.
You see, our idea was if the skills are mentioned in the same job postings, those are probably related to each other and should be taught in the same course. That's why we define distances that way. So now let's move this line. Now it's vertical line, and we can start moving it to look at different clusters. So first cluster that we, like when the line is intersecting here. So for skills, databases, big data, SAS SQL. That's definitely, based on that, we designed the data management course that was taught to you by Nika, by Veronica. So that exactly teaches this type of skill databases, data structure, basics of SQL, basics of NoSQLs, potential web scraping, probably you should have covered that, introduction to big data, APIs, things like that. Next, cluster, deep learning, AI, Python. Why those skills are together? Anybody can tell me? All deep learning frameworks, pretty much all deep learning frameworks that people are using are called from Python. PyTorch, TensorFlow, you call those from Python. So pretty much all AI deep learning is done in Python. That's very intuitive actually.
It's based on our favorite language.
R is very long.
Or that's an interesting thing, but again, it depends on the data set, how you collect the data for which professions, for which geographies, and so on. That's an interesting. So based on this, we designed deep learning computer vision course that we will have in the AI track that teach neural nets, deep learning, AI, Python, TensorFlow, potentially PyTorch, things like that. Modeling, SPSS statistics. Those are statistical skills and modeling skills. Statistical analysis course by the over image, statistical modeling, hypothesis testing. She didn't use SPSS, but that's just one of the software packages that can be potentially used. Spark Hadoop. Again, that's a distributed computing big data analytics course number 7 among the core courses in your program. They teach you distributed computing, cloud, Hadoop, Spark, things like that. Creativity, again, we didn't have that course, but that be a potential course on creative thinking and design thinking. That's a cluster by itself, if you want. Yeah, good question. Why are project management is found together? Even so, it's the same cluster that includes also statistical analysis. So it's not that intuitive, but the closest is project management. That's what I don't know. That's what just the vacancies show. Somehow R and project management were found together in the vacancies.
Unpleasant things are put together.
Oh, Spark and Hadoop are even probably more unpleasant. Yeah, but that's what it is. Again, one of the ideas that you can use as well. All you need for this, go and do web scraping, the Jupyter notebook that I gave you. Get another Jupyter notebook that I will show you for the hierarchical clustering. Combine those together, try to produce something like that. How hard it is? Just 2 hours of your time to put 2 notebooks, Jupyter notebooks together. Again, it's all not that hard if you know what you are doing and you have examples. My opinion, personal. It sounds hard. Oh, I need to go and start writing from the scratch. Yeah, in that case you spend 2 days. But nobody is doing that. Macro programming, as Maxim, for example.
Is there any depository or library of Jupyter notebooks?
No, but you just search on the web. On the GitHub you can find anything.
GitHub and Kaggle again.
Yeah, GitHub and Kaggle to a lesser degree.
Perfect.
Search for GitHub repos. People put their Python code and their Python code.
What is the algorithm to look for Jupyter notebook?
Google.
Oh, the algorithm is implemented in one of the Python packages.
No. I mean, how should we Google Jupyter notebooks?
The same as you Google anything else. Just you Google what you're looking for and put Jupyter notebook Python at the end of your search.
You can Google the file extension.
Yeah, you can Google the IP and the IP line. That's an example. And before we look at the Jupyter notebooks, the last algorithm did the scan density-based clustering. The advantage of it doesn't require you to input the number of clusters as an input. Instead, it requires 2 parameters. Epsilon, the distance, the radius for which the points can be included in one cluster, and the minimum number of points in the cluster.
So in fact, error and number of...
It's not an error, really. It's kind of, let's see. It's a distance. It's a radius of the circle for which the points can be included in one cluster. And 5 minimum number of data points in the cluster. Minimum number. So So now we start from any data point, draw a circle with the radius epsilon, 1 unit, 1 kilometer, 1 meter, 1, I don't know, Google kilometer. Google is just a large number. And there is a, I think that's an urban legend that when they try to register a company, they misspell the word Google. Google is something like a large number with 100 zeros. Yeah, Google is this 100 zeros, and then they register the Google as a company, they misspelled. So I think it's called something like, that's what number is called, and they misspelled it as Google, and that's how the company name was born. Nobody knows if it's true or not, but that's an urban legend. So, yes, so if you can find minimum 5 points within this radius, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you call it a core. And after you continue moving to another, okay, so that's another core, and because the two cores intersect, they come as one cluster. This is not a core, this is a core, this is a core, and so on, and you continue, not a core, the core, and now that may be an outlier or separate cluster, so you got this intersection of the cores is one cluster, here intersection of the cores is another cluster, and here, depending on the context, it may be an outlier or the third cluster. You will need to think how to treat that. That's all, very intuitive with this kind as well. Now, a summary, we just considered 4 types of clustering algorithms. There are more, but these 4 are major. So K-means or partition-based, policy means is also partition-based, hierarchical clustering called also agglomerative, and density-based called UDSCAN. And there are some features, some properties of those, like K-means need the number of clusters, K's and input, and so on. Now what people do, they compare these algorithms on multiple data sets. And that's what they look at. So what we have here, we have the K-means algorithm here, we have the agglomerative clustering hierarchical, and we have UDSCAN. Let's ignore everything else. What they did, they engineered 4 data sets that is kind of intuitive what are the clusters. So here, intuitive is one cluster, it's another cluster, and you want to see which clusters each of the algorithms return for this data set. Here is intuitively one cluster, another cluster. Here it's probably 2 or 3 clusters, here it's 1 cluster and 2. If you feed it into K-means is K equal to 2, you see that what it returns, not intuitive.
Correct. Where is the original picture? Or what is the original picture?
What is the origin?
Original picture of the data. I mean,
original picture, everything in one cluster is just this data points is one color.
In this color?
Yeah, in any color. So without clustering, you just have your data. That's all. So without color.
Black points.
Yeah, black points.
Originally it was all black dots.
Yeah, originally
2 circles.
Yeah.
It's just your data, these 2 features. Feature 1, feature 2. We didn't even, that's artificially created data, so it doesn't even matter what features mean. Feature X1, feature X2. We just wanted to see how the clustering performs on these 4 typical data sets. Everybody with me? So there is no meaning. That's artificially created data sets to see what each of the clustering algorithms outputs.
It's 4 data sets.
Yeah, 4 data sets. Data set number 1, and you see different clustering algorithms on different clusters. So the clusters are shown in colors. Second data set, third data set, and the fourth data set. 4 data sets.
So density works pretty well.
Density works pretty well, and actually hierarchical is not that bad either. So, yeah, K-means is at least K equal to 2 is not intuitive in most cases. UDSCAN works pretty well. You see agglomerative works pretty okay, except for this. You see there's a small number of points in the green cluster, but the most is blue, so still okay, but not perfect. And here it really depends. It's not clear whether this is really one cluster or 2 separate clusters. It really depends on the context. That's why both cases like this, 3 clusters, and cases like that, 2 clusters are probably acceptable.
But
But typically the DP scan is the choice in many cases. In many cases, that's probably the mostly used clustering algorithm, DP scan. That's right.
Yeah, because there's no false clusters.
But you need to find the appropriate parameters. You need to experiment with epsilon and the minimum number of points in the cluster. Okay, that's how clustering is used in different areas. Yeah.
What is the number? It's how much time spent for to do the
to run the algorithm. Even so, doesn't really matter that much. Those are all relatively fast for manageable data sets.
Again, the UDSCAN as well.
I did this kind of pretty fast. And you know, to speed up the algorithms, we use special tricks. This mini batch k-means that they parallelize k-means by using batching, so to speed it up. So there are ways to speed those up in practice. So that's why I wouldn't worry too much about the running time. At least for the data sets that we work with. You probably will not use more than 100 features in your project, for instance. 100 features will run in seconds, any of those algorithms. Okay, that's how clustering used in different application areas. Just feel free to take a look. Retail, marketing, education, banking, insurance, publishing, media, medicine, biology, and stuff like that. Like in publishing area, they can use this clustering. Automatic fact checking by identifying clusters. Recommending similar news articles, so articles in the same cluster are recommended. If you like the articles, if you read the articles in the same cluster, it makes sense to recommend the article from the same cluster to you to read next. Things like that. So, and that's probably it for the unsupervised machine learning. As we know, there are 3 types of machine learning: supervised, unsupervised reinforcement. And the whole balance of the machine learning algorithms is here. So at the end, even so we touched most of those. Don't be surprised. So machine learning algorithms. So we looked at, first we look at regressions. There are different regressions, but main is linear regression, logistic regression. There are some variants of those, but don't worry, it's just too much more. We mainly talk about linear logistic. There is regularized regression that we also talked. Ridge regression and lasso. We talked about this too. There are some other variants. You see, we covered pretty large set of those. After that, that's for supervised learning. Next, for the supervised learning, decision trees algorithms. Again, most of those are related how they really run the heuristics to minimize indirectly the error function. So what else we have talked? We'll talk about the neural nets and the deep learning and the next lecture. There are also ensembles of the algorithms when you put multiple values together. The 2 most famous ones are random forests and gradient boosting. There is gradient boosting, GBM. Yeah, if we have a couple of minutes, I'll briefly talk about those. Everything else is unsupervised machine learning, I guess. So for unsupervised machine learning, I mentioned dimensionality reduction. The most famous algorithm is PCA, principal for photons. We talked about clustering. K-means, hierarchical. There are some variants. It's actually much more than they listed here. There is, instead of K-means, K-medians. You can use distances there in terms of medians, in terms of means, if it's appropriate, and so on. Yeah, instant-based, that's also supervised. K-nearest neighbor is supervised machine learning. There is some Bayesian algorithms, like naive Bayes, we touch those. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we covered a lot from this. So you can now make some sense what each of those things mean.
And Bayesian, what is it about?
Bayesian is using the Bayesovskaya statistica. Using Bayesian statistics to really, this conditional probability, things like that, to do classification. For instance, Bayes is another classification algorithm. That's an interesting area by itself, but it's too hard.
Conditional probabilities.
Bayesian rule, which is a rule for conditional probabilities. Yeah. Okay, we talked about regression. There are other types of regression that we talk, quantile regression, things like that. In addition to logistic regression, there is logit and probit, which also work for classification problems, but again, those are a bit specialized. These association rules, market basket analysis that we briefly talked, define the associations, that's unsupervised machine learning, and that's it. So now, in the remaining, before the break, let's look at the Jupyter notebooks. Okay, we have exactly 10 minutes for Jupyter notebooks. So, K means clustering. Examples of those. Let's start from easy cases. No, I'm getting of the third day. So let's start from K-means from the randomly generated data. First, that's one of the data sets available in the scikit-learn. So intuitively here is 4 clusters. Let's just run K-means with K equal to 4 and see what we get. So, and now what we need, we just run K-means with K equal to 4. We train the model, and after that we visualize the results. And that's what we get. Yeah, we get exactly 4 clusters as expected when we give.
If you choose, for example, 3.
Right, that's you know what you have to run it with k equal to 3 and see what you get. Well, you can do it even now.
1 bit in the center.
Yeah.
That's what I would guess, yeah. Kind of forces.
Just run it and show to us what you get. So that's the advantage that if you have your laptop, you can rerun it in real time, change something and see what you get, and it takes a couple of minutes. Don't need to spend a lot of time. Second, as I said, clustering can be used to solve some classification problems, so people apply it to clustering digits. But because you know the class of the digits, essentially that's also a classification problem. And due to that, you all know automatically the number of clusters that you should get. So how many digits we have? 10. So you should run k-means with k equal to 10. That's why people like to show it. Even so, it's clustering algorithm, but here you can interpret the results and you can measure the error. So this k-means can be used for solving classification problems. Just because you know classes here for the handwritten digits. So those are some of the digits that we have. Those are 8 by 8. So how many features we have for the 8 by 8 digits? 64, and the feature is intensity or grayscale intensity of each of the pixels, yeah? Which is a number between 0 and 1. So that's what the feature means. Grayscale intensity of each of the pixels. In total there are 64 pixels, so 64 features. Yeah? In practice, of course, when you work with images, you typically need.
Actually, relation between pixels doesn't matter, yeah? So it's
if you want the relation between pixels, you need to go to your neural nets. So you run the means with k equal to 10, because you know it, and you basically, and after you, what you can do, you can actually overlay all the images that are clustered in the cluster 9, cluster 0, and you see that those look recognizable except for this, which is 8 and 1. Those can be easily mixed with each other, and that's what we'll probably see. So let's display our confusion first. Before that, it's another example of first example of dimensionality reduction, because we have so many features, we have so many clusters, 10 clusters, we cannot visualize those in 10 dimensions, but what we can do,
We
need to install some of the modules, I guess.
Just one, but it showed.
I showed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, so the two in the middle are one cluster. Interesting. So here, if you want to visualize the clusters, and there are 10 clusters, in 10 dimensions we cannot visualize, what we can do, this is probably the only example of the dimensionality reduction. You reduce the dimensionality from 10 to 2 in order to visualize 10 clusters in 2 dimensions. And that's what we do next, using principal component analysis. So here you visualize these colors, 10 clusters in 2 dimensions, one and another one.
Wow.
And you see that those are the true labels for the digits from 0, 1 to, and here are the non-labels. For some digits, as this one and this one, very good classification, clustering, and you see for some digits, like here, it's different. But in most cases, we are okay. You see that the colors are approximately the same in both pictures. So one way to visualize. Okay, what is the accuracy of the model? Even naively running k-means algorithm, we got 80% accuracy for classifying 10 different digits, and we can look at this confusion metric. So confusion metric shows that this is a true class, and this is a predicted class, and as expected, 1 and 8 are having problems. There are many ones that are classified or clustered as 8. So this is called the confusion matrix. So when it shows, one dimension shows the predicted labels, on the other dimension shows the true labels. So one way to look at the accuracy of your classification. Another example of k-means is the color compression. What we can do, we can take an image here, so it has how many, so that's the dimensionality of the image, many features, but we reduce it slightly to run it faster. So we reshape it to something smaller. And after that, what we want, it has this more than 2 million colors. and we want to compress those number of those 1 in 2 million colors into 64 clusters. So that's essentially to compress the image. It's 2 million colors is too much, so we want to compress this 2 million colors into 64 by essentially finding to which cluster which of the pixels belong. To which of the 64 clusters each of the pixels belong. So this is essentially very similar to the JPEG algorithm for image compression. You compress the number of colors from 2 million, 2.7 million into 64 colors. So you apply k-means. For that, we slightly reduce the dimensionality of pictures, so to reduce running time. So this is the total number of features, 143 by 214, still a lot. Features to be there. That's a original image. We will run the k-means the 64 colors, the 64 clusters, and after that we plot the result. This is an input, and this is the output image. And you see these gradients now. So because it's only 64 colors, you see these color conversions, yeah? Of course, the quality of the image is low, but you can still recognize what's there in the 64 colors. But the image is much smaller. So 2 million divided by 64, it was compressed, whatever, 10,000 times or something like that. So that was very basic k-means clustering. Now let's look at hierarchical clustering. Example, and the data set that I'm going to be using for hierarchical clustering is clustering of weather stations in Canada. So what we have the data about weather stations in Canada, downloading it from the CSV file that I posted. And what we have there, we have basically the name of the weather station, Distancie kilometer pogodu. Here is the latitude, longitude, province, British Columbia. This is TM, that's what will be one of our traditional features, the average temperature across the year at that weather station. We also have TX and TM is the minimum and the maximum temperature across the year at that weather station, and a bunch of other features that weather station measures, amount of precipitation, amount of snow, things like that. And here is an legend explanation. Latitude, longitude, province, mean temperature, TM. And we're using highest monthly maximum temperature and TM lowest monthly maximum temperature. We'll be using these three features for temperature and the latitude, longitude, the features related to the location. Just up to 5 features for now. So data cleaning, yeah, you do that. Data cleaning first, you can take a look. After that, you select the only 3 features that we are going to be using. And you visualize the data first. You plot your locations of the stations on the map of Canada. Those are the locations of the weather stations.
So
sorry?
It's weird. So one of the provinces, Tundra Station, is kind of weird.
This?
Saskatchewan, I guess maybe?
That's the, looks like the border of Saskatchewan and Alberta. Maybe for some agricultural needs, I don't know. Well, here in Ontario, it's a lot as well. And at the coast of BC next to Vancouver. Oh, that's real data, so that's what it is. So next, in order to first run it faster, we just select 30 examples instead of all examples, and after we will run it for, I don't know how many, hundreds examples that we have in our data set. So, now let's just take one feature, average temperature, and what we need to do, we need to compute the pairwise distance in this matrix D between all weather stations with respect to the pairwise temperature. So what is the distance means? The difference between the average temperature at these 2 weather stations to create this big matrix D. That's what we'll use an input into the hierarchical clustering, and after that we run this clustering algorithm, the hierarchical clustering with this matrix D using the centroid method. Don't even remember what centroid option is doing. And after that we plot the dendrogram. We plot this, or what we call the hierarchical plot, we call the dendrogram. What it shows here, it shows the name of the station and the average temperature. There. And as you see, quite intuitive, so here are the stations with the positive average temperature in this cluster. over here is negative, and here is one is extreme negative, minus 33 average temperature, where it's Baker Lake climate station. So, yeah, if you really intersected this vertical line over here, where it intersects three lines, you see very intuitive. Cluster with positive average temperatures, cluster with negative average temperatures, and one cluster with extreme negative temperature. So, very intuitive explanation. After that, we can run it for a number of features. Now, when we want to use 5 features, we need to compress it into 1 because to compute the pairwise distances. So we just need to normalize those, compute the average across 5 different features because hierarchical clustering works with 1 feature. You define the distances in terms of 1 feature. So if we use 5, we need to compress those into 1. So what we do, we normalize it to be between 0 and 1, and after we compute the average across 5 features to have 1 feature. Again, not necessarily the only way to do it, but that's what we do. And we get our new matrix D of the pairwise distances. And now we run this algorithm for all weather stations, not only 30, and we get this huge image where we cannot even read much, but just because I think there are like 500 of the weather stations or something. But yeah, it looks nice, but you cannot. You can read something like temperature 12.5, but you cannot even read the name of the weather station.
Please explain the result.
Yeah, and then that's pretty much enough that we can visualize it on the map. So overlaying the number of clusters with the color, and we show that we found, I don't know how many clusters, 28 clusters with this hierarchical clustering, and you can try to interpret the results. Somehow, yeah, there are a lot of clusters here across 5 features. There's just not that many in Eastern Canada. Okay, and the same last example, dbScan and k-means for the same weather stations data. Now, as I said, what you can do, you can just stick your data into this clustering algorithm. So if you want to use it for a project, you extract the skills using the web scraping of Indeed website, and after put those into this code, and you have your hierarchical clusters that I showed on the slides. As easy as that, nothing more than that. Again, it should take you not more than half an hour to do that, or an hour to do that if you want to start this hierarchical clustering. You can also try other dbScan, k-means, whatever. So weather stations data, the same data as before, nothing changes. We visualize our data on the map, and after let's start with clustering using only 2 features, longitude and latitude, just location-based clustering, and after we add the temperatures as additional features. So dbScan, we define the 2 parameters, the minimum number of samples and the epsilon. Not sure what are the units for epsilon, maybe 1,000 miles or 1,000 kilometers, whatever. 0.15,000 kilometers, I guess something like that. 150 kilometers, I guess. So you run your clustering, dbScan, and you show your clusters on the map, and the number of clusters is equal to what? Number of clusters is 6. It returns. So 1 cluster here, 1 cluster there in the prairies, cluster 3 is here, cluster 0 is the north, 4 it's in Ontario, and 5 are the Atlantic Canada. So yeah, it makes some sense, but it's just location-based clustering so far. I think next they added where run the k-means with number of clusters equal to 7. They got the results, and after that they added the temperatures. So that's the k-means, and after that you add the temperatures in addition to location to the features. Now there are 5 features: x coordinate, y coordinate, latitude, longitude, and the mean temperature, medium temperature, and the maximum temperature. So 5 features. And you run dbScan, and after k-means, and you visualize the results. So that's all what you're doing. Here now it's more probably precise than they did the temperature, because it's separately did it for separate, looks like separate climate at Newfoundland and Labrador, at New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Ontario, Southern Ontario, and so on. And how you can use this? One possible use that's intuitive is you can use separate weather model to predict weather at each cluster. That's what it is. That's what probably we're doing. Separate weather model, that a separate climate zone kind of climate cluster, for each of those, so you can use just whatever 10 different data models instead of having a separate data model for each of the weather stations. And you will run k-means with 7 clusters, and you also get clusters. I think BDScan clusters are still more intuitive. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Okay, now think what data you can stick into those examples, that's all. And use that for your first project. Okay, time to take a break before the last and the hardest lecture, neural nets. And but for that I have only one Jupyter notebook, so.
Neural network.
So you build a neural net directly in Python without any frameworks and calculate everything, train it directly in Python.
So we will make a neural network to make this class assignment.
Yes. I will not ask really much about the neural nets, not in the project, not on the final exam. That's topic, and we will have at least 2 other courses about neural nets.
Thank you.
We're discussing about some issue. A lot of you remember when one thinker and one volunteer was, how to say, they decided they are responsible for explosion with journalist Pavel Sheremetov. You remember, yeah?
Okay.
And we are discussing a lot because we disagree with the opinion from our Ministry of Internal Affairs. Something logical in this case.
Which logic? Why they turn off the phones? All, which they never did.
Okay. My accumulator is really, but okay.
The first time ever. All together.
Слушай, у тебя...
How do you explain? Just keep on explanation. That's it.
Я детей не обижаю.
No. Just say theory number 1, theory number 2, theory number 3. So you say that the battery was off, simultaneously.
If I today will switch off my phone one time in this year, I'm definitely responsible for some terroristic explosion or something like that.
No.
It's not.
Calculate the probability of that event which happened simultaneously of 5 of them, which has never happened before.
Let's make neural network and analyze this issue.
But you don't have arguments. You don't have arguments. What is the probability? They have never switched off.
But if you switch off at this stage,
Actually, you should have asked them to open the bottle first. During the last lecture,
suspected.
to better digest all these issues, including neural nets and their investigations.
How we can believe that their phones were
Then okay. Then we have few pieces of arguments. We can discuss whether these arguments are true or false. If we believe they are true, then we can try to discuss the probability of events and arguments. But if you mix all together, if you say, okay, it's not a typical behavior, the guy was good or bad, let's make a decision tree. We believe arguments which are there are true or false. If they are false, nothing to discuss. If they are true, then what? Then we have a few arguments, and then let's try to look at them just seriously.
Okay, let's finish it over. So, supervised machine learning, neural nets. Okay, so neural nets is the algorithm where the hypothesis function is the computational graph. That's all what it is. So, hypothesis function represented as a graph where we have our features x1, x2 as an inputs, and the target variables and output, and that every node of the graph we are taking a non-linear function of the input. So these are non-linear functions, that's all. And at the end, that's this big function that we'll write down later. So use 2 success stories for neural nets deployed image computer vision, image classification, object detection, and so on. And partial success, natural language processing, and time series analysis, speech recognition, machine translation, time series predictions, and so on. So here the technology is typical recurrent neural nets. In the computer vision, convolutional neural nets, CNNs. Our applications in the early stages is digit recognition, classifying postal codes, handwritten postal codes. That's pretty much where it started some time ago. And that resulted in one of the largest data sets for images with digits called MIST. That's a data set that contains images, handwritten images of the digits. So class y equal to 1, class y equal to 2, class y equal to 3, and up to class y equal to 10. So that's pretty much the classical application of neural nets, recognize handwritten digits in the postal codes. Now, how we encode this as features? So let's say that we have image, for instance, 28 by 28, or in this case it's what, 8 by 8. And let's say we have 4 grayscale intensities, here is white, here is black. So how we encode this image and a set of features? So we take the first pixel, we take its intensity, put it there. So these 2 pixels. After that, we take this pixel, put it there. We take this black pixel, put it there. And we continue stacking all pixels row by row in one big vector. And after that, we encode it as a vector of numbers. So intensity of this pixel is 1, it's close to white. It's like the grayscale. Of the second is also 1, of the third is 2. Of this is black is 3, and so on. And we have our vector of features, which we call x, as before. In this case, if the image is 28 by 28, we have 784 features. If the image is 1000 by 1000, we have the vector of million features. If we have colored image, instead of grayscale, so intensity of each pixel is encoded with 3 colors, red, green, blue. Everybody remember RGB. So we have the number of features equal to the number of pixels multiplied by 3. For each color intensity. So 3 intensities instead of 1 in the grayscale case. The number of features can be large. But there is a special trick in the neural nets. So essentially what convolutional neural nets do for this image recognition, at the first stage, the network is doing dimensionality reduction. It reduces the number of features from million to a small number, and after it does classification. So you can design an architecture of neural net to perform these 2 tasks. Yeah, million features is too large, so let's neural net first do dimensionality reduction with the convolutional layers, and after that use our logistic function, sigmoid nodes, to do classification. That's typical line of thinking for that. Now, colors indicate class, so 3 class example with 2 features. So the point here, which has coordinate x1 equal to 4, x2 equal to 2, class 0, here is class 1, here is class 2, so we can encode and visualize everything as we initially do for our data. Now, let's get back to our classifiers. So we have our linear classifier, we have our linear regression, logistic regression, and let's try to apply it to this data set. We have only 1 feature, 2 classes. The data looks perfectly separable, so let's look what's going on. And here is our target here. So we can separate this with a line. So this data is linearly separable, very easy. Now, so what in the case of line, so that's a linear regression, and that's an equation of the linear regression. Just in the context of neural nets, those parameters, those coefficients are called W and B instead of zetas or betas. So that's a neural net notation. Their parameters are called weights, W, in front of the features, and this intercept is called B. That's, again, just a change of notation in the neural net context. The parameters are called weights and biases in the context of neural nets. In the context of regression, those are called the weights. The coefficients or the parameters of linear logistic regression. Slightly different notation in neural nets, but the same meaning. And in n dimensions, then we have more than 1 feature. Here is only 1 feature x. Here we have one feature. We have this W transpose x multiplied by b. So the vector x is the vector of features. Now, what we have in this case, so this is class 0, this is class 1, this is only 1 feature. So what we can do in the linear classifier case in regression, we can find the appropriate values of the parameters w and b, for instance 1 and -1, and we get that's an equation of the line that separates these two classes. Easy. Positive class 1, class 0. That's how my battery is dying, so show directly on the board. Okay, so that's how we interpret this. So the line, this is the value of the feature is 3, and we substitute there, we get the value 2. So here, for the negative, -2 substitute there into our line, we get -3. So when we get positive number, we classify as blue class, and we get negative number, classify as class, red class. Okay, that's all basically like that. Next, what we said, we use this type of functions to convert our classification, to convert our results into classes. So that's what we called the threshold function, which was not nice because it's non-differentiable, but still we can use it. And after that, what we did, we applied the threshold function to our linear function to produce a class. Remember, for instance, in the case of logistic regression, we applied the logistic function to convert the number into class. But we can also do a threshold function, which is of course non-differentiable, but we can still do it. So to put it all together, what we do? The equation of this line that separates data is 1 x1 minus 1 in the present of one feature x. And after that, what we do? So we take the value of the feature, substitute it here, 1 multiplied by 3 minus 1, we get plus 2. So apply the plus 2 to the threshold function, here is 1, 2, and that corresponds to plus 1. So that's how we convert the numerical value into class, using the threshold function. Now let's do the same for this point. For the second class, where the value of the feature x is -2, substitute it into the equation of this line. Take the threshold function, so threshold of -3, we get -3 here. Here for the threshold function, here is -3, and that corresponds to class 0. So we apply the threshold function to convert the result returned by our linear classifier model, linear regression, to the class. Instead, what we also did in the case of logistic regression, instead of the threshold function, which was non-differentiable, we used the sigmoid function, the logistic function. Sigmoid and logistic is the same name, so in the context of neural nets, that's the way we call sigmoid. In the case of logistic regression, called logistic function. That was the form of the logistic function. So, and again, that's the value for plus 4, the logistic function returns approximately 1, for -1 returns approximately 0.25, for +1 returns approximately 0.75, and so on. Now let's use logistic function instead of threshold function to do the same. So value of this, plus 2, here is plus 2, now overlay is a threshold function, we get the number which corresponds to the probability. And after that, because the probability is above the threshold of 0.5, we return plus 1. That's what we did in the case of logistic regression. Just another illustration of the same thing, and after we project it in neural nets. To do the classification for this data point, which has the value of the feature x -2, -2 for the line it returns -3. After that, we take the logistic function of -3, and we get the value which is smaller than the threshold of 0.5, and we classify it as class 0. And here are the examples, what we do with classifications. Remember, for different points, remember the logistic regression returns the probabilities, and after we convert these probabilities to class 0 if this number is below threshold of 0.5, and convert to plus 1 if that number is above the threshold. And again, threshold of 0.5 is the default, but we can move the threshold if we want.
The threshold is the sigmoid function or this linear function?
Essentially what we do, we take the sigmoid of the linear function. Remember, yesterday we wrote this in the form of this equation. So our hypothesis function was the sigmoid of the linear. That's what they show. This is a linear function after you take sigmoid of it. So this is a linear function after you take sigmoid of that. And that's what your hypothesis function returns. That's what we do. In the context of neural net, it's the same. Just the notation is here, instead of the parameters theta, we call those w's, the weights, plus b. So pretty much that's the only difference of what's going on. Just slightly different notation in the context of neural net. So it has multiplied by x plus b. So that's how they involve the linear function there. Instead of thetas, they call those w's, and instead of theta 0, they call it b. But that's what's going on visually. So you have the value of your teacher, in this case minus 0.25. After you substitute it here instead of x, you first apply the linear function to it, this linear function, so to compute this value, and after that you take the logistic function of this linear function, and it returns the probability, which if it's below the threshold you convert to plus 0, if it's above the threshold you convert to plus 1. That was our procedure. And that's what we'll now use in the context of neural net. Now, the problem would appear if our data is not linear separate. So none of these algorithms, like logistic regression, would be able to separate this type of data. You see, we have red classes on the sides and the blue class in the middle. Now the data is becoming inseparable, so can we do something with neural nets to separate these two classes or not? That's a question that we'll try to investigate. So when our data was separable, everything was easy. That's what we was doing. But now when we have the data points, red plus, which are on the right, the data becomes inseparable. This data set is not linear separable, so that's why with the models like logistic regression, we cannot do correct classifications, whatever you do. So can we do something with neural nets to separate these two classes with the neural net? And let's see what we can do. So this is our data. The red classes are on the sides, the blue class is in the middle. One feature. So this one feature X over here, and this is our data. Now, if we were able to implement in the neural net a function like this, it will separate our data. But that's a non-linear function. Can we do that function with neural net? Let's try. So let's say that we try to separate our data with the linear classifiers we did before, like this. What we have a misclassification here. Yeah, those points will be misclassified. So that's when we take the sigmoid function of the linear function, we get a function like this. This is misclassified. Now, okay, but that looks like this part we got right. Can we somehow relate with that part? So now let's take another linear function, and after take the sigmoid function of that, we get this. Now these points are classified correctly, but these points are misclassified. So it looks like we got the second part right, but got the first part wrong. Now can we combine these two cases together? So this one, and it happens to be the case, yes. When we take this function minus this function, we get exactly this, and that's what we need. By adding up this nonlinear function, this sigmoid function, minus this sigmoid function, we are getting this nonlinear function that is able to separate our data. And that's what we can now implement with the help of neural net. That's a trick. That's what neural nets can do. First, they can separate data like that with the help of stacking together multiple functions. Like this. And after we have the threshold, everything is above the threshold is blue, and there, everything below the threshold is red. Like there. Threshold of whatever, 0.5. Now let's put this into the neural net. So here is the input x, that's our feature that we feed into two linear functions, this one and that one first, and after that into the non-linear logistic function next. So what happens? We feed the linear model, overlay it is a non-linear model, after this two non-linear model get it summed up together, and they get this function. So this is the idea of the neural net. So what we have? First, we have a linear function, this linear function there. After we take a non-linear function out of that linear function, and One example of the nonlinear function is the logistic function, which is called the sigmoid function for neural nets. And after we feed these two nonlinear functions into a linear function again, which sum up these two functions, summing up is a linear operation, and we get this shape of a nonlinear function. So this neural net, these two neurons, can actually separate that data that we are not able to separate with linear classifiers like logistic regression. But for that, we need to put two neurons in our net and feed the same feature X into it. So that's, this one is called the artificial neuron, this one below is artificial neuron as well. Now let's, again, visualize it one more time in terms of numbers. So what we can first, we feed the same feature X into two linear functions. One linear function is X plus 5, another is X minus 5. And that's what we get for the X. So when we calculate Z1 from X and Z2 from X and plot those together, this is our data in this new space of the variables Z1 and Z2, two functions now. So red data, blue data, and red data again. Next, let's look at this red data that was here in the space of the variable X, and now we have the same in the space of variables Z1 and Z2. Now this is our blue points, the blue plus, and again the red plus. So what's going on? Now, after having this linear function X plus 5 and X minus 5, Z1 and Z2, we take a non-linear logistic, or sigmoid it's called in the neural nets function, out of this linear function, out of this linear function. So that's what we are doing. Out of this linear function, we are taking the non-linear sigmoid function, and let's compute what we get. So for this, what we get this, then we take the sigmoid function. This is the space of A1 and A2, A2 and 1. See the red dots are now here. These red dots were there in the space of X. Now in the space of the activation function A1 and A2, those red dots are there, the blue dots are there, and the red dots are there. And you see now those are linearly separable. If you put a line there, you can separate two classes. Because what we were able to do, we were able to do the following. So some people will call it feature engineering. Neural nets do automatic feature engineering. We included one feature, we engineered new feature A1 and A2, and in the space of this new feature A1 and A2, our data is becoming separate. So essentially they combine, they introduce a nonlinear transformation of the feature X, taking a logistic function of X plus 5 and taking another logistic function of X minus 5, and in the transform space of the new features A1 and A2, the data is linearly separable. So we can classify it correctly, now with the help of neural net. That's a trick. That's what some people tell you, that neural nets can do automatic feature engineering. In this case, neural net automatically engineered feature A1, this function, taking the sigmoid function of X plus 5, of the linear function X plus 5, and the feature A2 was engineered taking a logistic function of X minus 5, and in the space of this A1 and A2, the new features, the data become linearly separable.
This is one neuron or two neurons here?
This is two, actually. This is first neuron and this is second neuron.
Okay.
This is activation function A1, this is activation function A2. And after we can continue this process and make it more complex, but the idea will be the same. Neural nets can apply nonlinear functions to separate data that is not separable with other algorithms.
By creating that new data space.
Essentially by creating new data space. So you can call it by creating new features. That's automatic feature engineering, but of course to engineer new features you still need to have an input feature. You can't engineer features out of the existing features. So this is a new feature out of X. If you didn't provide that feature, of course it cannot do anything. You still need to input the original features, yeah? In order to engineer the combinations of original features. That's what neural net is doing. It's doing automatic feature engineering, enhancing the original features with the nonlinear transformations in order to get a better classification, a better prediction. That's a big idea behind neural nets. And now let's, and then we can make it bigger, and so on. Two frameworks that people do it in Python is TensorFlow and PyTorch. Keras is another framework sitting on the top of TensorFlow. We'll briefly look at that. And there are more courses about it. Now, let's do another example and finally understand the mathematics of neural nets. That's our final big part, which may be a bit scary, and we have 45 minutes for it to finish it up. So what we have for our logistic regression. So logistic function has this form, hypothesis function for logistic regression looking like a logistic function taken of a linear function, which have this form 1 plus 1 plus exponent to the power minus eta transpose x multiplied by x. Vector theta was the vector of unknown parameters that we had to learn by minimizing the error function. So in the context of neural nets, logistic function is called sigmoid function, but it's the same function. Just two names for it, logistic and sigmoid, the same function that has this form. Now, if we represent logistic regression in the form of neural net, it will have this form. So those are the features that we feed into our model, x0, x1, x2, and x3. Here we have our neuron representing the logistic activation function, and after we have our output that is the hypothesis function. Again, x is a vector of features, theta is a vector of parameters, which are in the neural network terminology called weights. And now we can rewrite this in the neural network terminology. And what we are doing, we are just changing the notation to be compatible with neural net terminology. Formulas are staying the same. So, the notation is, now our parameters are the weights and biases instead of thetas, but that's pretty much the same formula. So here it was called theta transform multiplied by x, here is w transform multiplied by x plus the theta 0, now it's called b. Those are called weights, those are parameters, and this is parameters called bias. So, just a different notation. Now parameters in the term neural net terminology are called the vector of weights and the bias. Earlier we called those thetas, just the parameters of the logistic function. Again, the formula is the same, just the terminology is slightly different. And that's what it is. Another typically, the logistic sigmoid function is denoted by the notation sigma. And what this neural net is doing, given the input features x0, x1, x2, it multiplies those by weight at the bias b and takes a logistic sigmoid activation function at this neuron of this linear function, and that's our output. So our hypothesis function has this form, and that's a sigmoid logistic function. Again, another notation means the same. Still the same function, just another notation. That's pretty much all. So now parameters of our machine learning model of our neural nets are called the weights, but all are still parameters. And this vector, instead of theta, is called the vector of the weights and b. So the b in the past was called theta 0, w1 was called theta 1, w2 was called theta 2, w3 was called theta 3. Just historical neural net terminology is like that. But it's the same as it was for logistic regression. So this very simple neural net represents logistic regression. You can represent logistic regression as this simple neural net. But these neural nets, we can do much more complex things with just logistic regression, because we can put multiple neurons together in multiple layers and enhance our hypothesis function. Let's do that. Okay, now let's build a bigger neural net, still out of the same components. So we have features vector x, and that's called the input layer. So this is the input layer of neural nets, and these are our features. The same features as before, nothing changes. Conveniently, feature x0 is set to 1, and now this is called the bias term. So this layer of the feature is called the input layer. The layer that outputs our target variable y is called the output layer, and the layers in between are called the hidden layers. At each neuron, at each layer, we select what is this activation function. We need to select a nonlinear function. So One choice is the sigmoid function. This function can be selected as an activation function, but there are other possible activation functions as well that we may slightly discuss, like real loop, softmax, and so on. And the idea is that at each layer you take a nonlinear function of the previous layer, nonlinear function, to create a very complex nonlinear function that represents your hypothesis function. So essentially, in the case of neural nets, hypothesis function is a computational graph, the neural net itself, where at each layer you take a nonlinear function of a nonlinear function coming from the previous layer. Nothing more than that.
So, and that's the activation function is the one that does that separating.
So, and you know what are the properties of activation function. So, you know what the logistic activation function is for, is for classification. It returns a probability. That's what we can use it for. Again, each activation function has certain properties, but at the end, we can put any non-linear activation function there. And people do active research which activation functions make sense for which applications. Okay, now, before that, so we can have arbitrary amount of hidden layers. Output layer outputs the target variable. A set of weights and biases between each layer, W and D are parameters. So we have the set of weights for the first layer, which we denote by W1, V1, and we have a set of weights and biases for the second layer, which we denote as W2, V2. And we have a choice of the activation function for each layer. Sigma, and for now we just use the sigmoid activation function everywhere, but you can start any nonlinear function for those neurons.
Go first.
Output layer, why it is range 1? Why it is not range 4?
Well, this is the index of the layer 2. This is the index of layer 3.
Okay, yes.
That means the first neuron of the layer 2, first neuron of layer 3. Second neuron of the layer 2. Again, notation is complex because the dimensionality is complex.
So if the activation function, if it's the thing that takes a non-linearly separable whatever, data frame, something, whatever, and makes it linearly separable, how does multiple layers fit into this?
Well, remember in that example you had one feature. What if you have 2, 3, 4 features and the relationships are much more complex than what we have shown?
So like the other layers are like dimensionality of
So the other layers do basically non-linear transformation of the previous layers. And yes, this can represent dimensionality reduction, this can represent like this computing the probability classification, that can represent something else. So if you go and potentially on the other courses, especially in the computer vision deep learning course, we will look at special functions that are very applicable to computer vision. Like these convolutional functions, that's why those called convolutional neural nets, are very applicable to computer vision application. That's why in that case you choose convolutional activation function, which does the convolution of the image to reduce the states of the features. And after, at the next layer, you can put the sigmoid activation function to do a classification. Again, you just design the architecture of neural net itself by knowing the application area.
And then the +1, like I don't understand the function of that.
We call it intercept. So feature x0 was set to 1, which represented the intercept in our model, which we call the parameter θ0 was multiplied by x1, which was set to 1. And now in this it's called the bias. So the bias is multiplied by x0, so this is a constant coefficient in the linear function.
And that has to happen at every layer.
You have a choice whether to have a constant. The same is with regression. You have a choice to set the intercept to 0 or to compute that parameter θ0, basically based on the application.
But does that choice? You make the choice, and that choice remains through all the layers, or is that choice?
No, you can decide. Yeah, for the first layer, because of some reason I set beta 1 to 0, but for this it's going to be computed during the training of my neural net. The same as for the base. And basically, the That's equivalent of removing the feature. You may decide to remove this input feature +1, and that's it. Or you may decide to remove x3 as your input feature. That's your choice.
So from every layer we get these weighted coefficients?
For every layer you get, yes. Because what happens, this is a linear function, and after you take a non-linear function, linear function. After this another linear function, after you take another non-linear function, linear function. We'll write it down right now in terms of the formulas. That's actually quite an interesting. So what this output y is. So this is the two-layer neural net. First layer, second layer. And pretty much now the neural net work with more than one layer. In this case 2 is called deep neural net. So this is only deep neural net because it has more than one layer, more than one hidden layer, more than one layer. So. Now, what is output y? So what we do, how this is computed, the hypothesis function. What we do, we take the sigmoid function, y is equal to a sigmoid function of the previous input. What is the previous input? Is the weight w multiplied by this plus b. So the weight w multiplied by the output of this neuron, which is this term, plus b2. What is this neuron? So it's x1 and other features multiplied by the appropriate weights, plus b1, and after it we take a non-linear sigmoid function out of it. As a result, the total function of this neural net is written this way. So, non-linear, in this case sigmoid function taken in this layer, from the linear function output from previous layer. What is linear function output from previous layer is w2, the weight, plus this, which is coming from the previous layer, plus the constant b2, which is called the bias. Now, how this function is computed? That's what coming as an input here. So this is this part. This is a non-linear function, sigmoid function, of the linear function coming from the previous layer. What is linear function coming from the previous layer? The base w1 multiplied by the input features x plus the bias b1. So what you are doing at this layer of the neural net, you are taking a non-linear function of a previous non-linear function. And you add the linear component to it by multiplying by the weights and adding the constant. That's what you are doing in the neural net. Every layer takes a non-linear function of a previous non-linear function and you do it multiple times. And that way you can be complex non-linear function of any complexity. You put two layers and you have a very complex non-linear function. That you cannot, you don't even know how to, it will even take too long to write it down this way.
Antiderivative.
Something like that, probably. That's the whole idea which is difficult to digest. Neural net is a very complex non-linear function. This hypothesis function for neural net is a very complex non-linear function because at every layer you take a non-linear function of a non-linear function coming from the previous layer. And when you write it down, this is really a nested non-linear function. Again, at this point, at this layer, you take a non-linear function sigma, the sigmoid function of the linear function coming from the previous layer. What is the linear function? It takes the inputs from the previous layer, in this case the vector x, multiplying those by the weights, add the constant number, which is the bias. So linear function coming from the previous layer, take a non-linear function out of it. Now there is this linear function, which is now a linear function coming over here. So you multiply by a coefficient w2 by weights, add b2, and take another non-linear function out of that. And you continue stacking additional layers. So this is probably one of the most important things in neural net to understand. Another will be backpropagation. That's not what neural net is.
This is really time consuming, yeah, that's why only in the last years, yeah.
Exactly. So when you have neural, to solve practical problems, you typically need to build multi-layered neural nets. And
I mean, just a sign. For the gradient, usually you have a different.
Yeah, probably just let's leave that there.
So just
just annotation.
Speak language, don't make a difference, okay.
Yeah, I'm not a mathematician, so well, that's always my excuse. Sorry, I'm so sorry, Canadian politeness. I'm so sorry to be sorry about being sorry. That's what we say. for Italians say it even nicely, bo. So in the UK they say it typically sho. So similar. Now let's put it in the code. So now I just want to convince you that the code for backpropagation that we had in Python is exactly implementation of these formulas that we derived. That's not what it is. That's the last step to basically have the same in Python, because we're going to do these computations by seeking this formula. That's probably that you needed to see it for the last time, because all this is implemented automatically in the frameworks like PyTorch or TensorFlow for you, all these formulas. It's good to understand those. You will never typically, you will never do these backpropagation derivations manually. You just need to know what those are, and you need to understand what those mean, and after that you just use neural nets. But in my opinion, using these frameworks, PyTorch and TensorFlow, without understanding these basically makes neural nets is kind of useless. You don't understand what's going on. So understanding is to understand what's going on, and after in the other courses you don't need to bother about the mathematics of neural nets anymore. You will just use one of the frameworks from Python, like PyTorch or TensorFlow, that does this calculation internally for you. It's all implemented already for you. Now, let's just do this. Okay, learning rate, let's set it to 1 for convenience, it's the easiest. Let's set it to any other. Now, in this formula, when we apply the weights W2, so when it says the weights W2 are equal to the weights W2, that's like plus equal, plus, yeah, that's the weight W2. Now, this term is 2 multiplied by y minus y hat. 2 multiplied by y minus y hat, this self-input is y hat. Next, y hat, 1 minus y hat, so this is sigmoid derivative, that's the only one. Sigmoid derivative is the sigmoid function by 1 minus sigmoid function of y hat. So this is this. So next, z, we call layer 1, that's z. Of course, I needed this transposition and things like that, and it's what in mathematics like that. And that's all. This is the formula for updating the weights W2. And after you put it, that updates here. So W2 is equal to W2 plus this term is called debates, and that's how debates 2 is computed. Exactly the same terms that we derived in the formulas. Just go and convince yourself, the same formulas in Python that we derived. Now for the weights W1, so for the weights W1, we update the weights W1 by computing this update, which is here. So that's y2 y minus y hat, 2 y minus y hat. This is the derivative of the sigmoid, or derivative of the sigmoid function for y hat. This is W2. This is z minus 1 minus z. So layer 1 is z, and it's sigmoid derivative multiplied by x. X is our input layer. The same there. So that's all implemented in Python, and now we can, let's do the last step. Let's run that in Python. And that's where we can finish. So we don't probably need to go anywhere else. So now this example in Python. What I did, I just implemented exactly what I showed on the slides. I implemented, here is definition of a sigmoid function, and it's all neural net I manually using just NumPy, nothing more in Python. So we define the sigmoid function, and we define the derivative of the sigmoid function. You remember the derivative of the sigmoid function is x multiplied by 1 minus x, where x is just the input of that function. So we define the inputs, we initialize the neural net, define the input layer x, which we call input, define the initial weight by randomly initializing those, defining the output, and y is the value of target variable in the data set. And this is y hat, so this is y, this is y hat. After that, we define the feed-forward layer that calculates the output y hat using the weights. And after we define this backpropagation function that calculates the derivatives and applies iterations of the gradient descent based on the derivatives. And after in the main function, we have 4 examples, 3 features. So those are the 3 features, so columns, and 4 examples are rows. And of course, 4 values of the target variable y in our data. After that, based on this x and y, we define our neural net, and we run a number of iterations of a number of epochs, as it's called in the neural net terminology. First doing the feed forward, we have to define the back propagation. And we output the optimal results, which actually output the probability of belonging to class 1. So here is class 0, because the probability of belonging to class 1 is very small. And remember, so what we want these outputs to coincide with this. So this is the true value of y, this is y hat. Yeah? And of course it's the same class 0, because the probability of belonging to class 0 is 99%. Probability of belonging to class 1 is 1%. For the example 2, the y is 1, and of course probability of belonging to class 1 is 97%. And the same for this class 1. So probability of belonging to class 1 output by our model, this is y hat, what I'm showing is 97%, and this is probability of belonging to class 1 is 4%, probability of belonging to class 0 is 96%. So that's y hat, the weights, the target variables y hat, the predictions of our neural net that we already trained in this loop. And now what I did I implemented the same in the Keras and TensorFlow frameworks. So TensorFlow is the Google framework for designing and training neural net, and the Keras is an abstraction layer on the top of it that allows us to define neural nets in pretty much a couple of lines. So how we do that? We define our model, that's a sequential neural net. Feed-forward neural net, after we define layer 1. So it has 4 activation functions. The activation functions are sigmoid functions. The dimensionality of the inputs, 3. We have 3 features. Everybody with me, and it now defines us this first layer. After we're going to define the second layer, and the second layer, it has 1 unit on the output, and the activation function is sigmoid function. After I summarize the model, after I choose the optimizer, it's stochastic gradient descent. We can skip what is stochastic. That's just variant of the gradient descent. Learning rate is set to 1. This alpha learning rate is set to 1. After that, the loss function is mean squared error. The optimizer is stochastic gradient descent. Now you give the input, the same what we given. This is our examples. For example, 3 features. The target variable y. You say model fit. Run it for the same 1,500 epochs as we did manually. And after say predict. That's all. And now we confirm that we pretty much get very similar results. So class 0, class 1, class 1, class 0. And what it's nice is that outputs the total number of parameters it needs. So on the first layer, it needs 16 parameters. So why 16? So the dimensionality of the W1. What is the dimensionality of W1? The weights on the first layer. So we have 3 inputs and 4 activation functions in the first layer. 3 by 4 is what? 12? Plus the biases. V1. We have 4 activation functions in the first layer, so we need 4 biases. 12 plus 4 is 16. Yeah? Total number of parameters on the first layer is 16. Everybody with me? Second layer, 5 parameters. So W2 is, so we have 4 activation functions at the layer 1 and 1 at the layer 2 at the output layer. So that's why 4 weights and 1 bias. 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 parameters in the second layer, total number of parameters 21. Total number of parameters of this function that we call those setters, now we call those W's and B's, is 21. Yeah, that's pretty much very interpretable. You know what's going on. Now just go and build your neural net over there. In Keras, you know how it works, how it's going to be trained, provide your own input, train it, and get the output. So you can print a bunch of other things about your neural net, and you can even visualize it this way, so it shows you the layers. Input layer, first layer, and the output layer. So that's even the plot of your very simple 3-layer neural net. Input layer, output layer, and the hidden layer. That's where I probably would stop.
Nothing more than that?
No, everything else in the other courses. You have only 4 core courses, another 4 core courses, and another 4 elective courses. But you are already 2/3 through the program. Oh, 1/3 of the program. Yeah.
Понятно.
Oi.
It sounds hard, and you will need to start putting this together in your head with other courses, basically supplement what we learned. That's why I try to stick this much in this course, because other courses, other technical courses will build on the top of that. Of course, other business courses will also build on the top, but from the business side. And you have, if you decide to select the AI track, and I think some of you still thinking that you select the business analytics tracks or the AI track, you decide to select the AI technical track. In that case, you will have course about deep learning computer vision, course about natural language processing, which we also touch machine learning neural nets, course about advanced machine learning, with all this repeated in a bit more details about machine learning, with more examples and things like that, and the course about other optimization, other data science algorithms, optimization, simulation, modeling, network graph models. So you will, in the 4 courses, if you decide to select the AI track, you will go deeper into this, and you will again explore to this so you understand more.
Do we know now who's going to be teaching those 2 tracks?
Yeah. You have the syllabuses posted on Moodle with the names of the professors and the syllabus of the course, so you can review that before deciding which track you are going to select. And the business analytics track, there are 4 business courses. So marketing analytics, healthcare analytics, financial analytics, 3rd course, and marketing research and market research, design of surveys and stuff like that.
They will be in the same time, the tracks?
No.
Different time.
Different time. So basically, they will be next to each other, but because you're taking only one track, you will still have 3 weeks between the courses. It's probably, I'm not remembering the schedule exactly, but it's probably going to, those courses are starting relative at the end of March and ending at the beginning of June. And then from June you start working on the capstone project till the end of August. So let's say, and for simplicity start. So first week of April, and probably will be the first AI course 1, and the second week of April will be business analytics course 1. So we are apart 1 week, but because you're not taking 2 tracks together, you're just taking 1, you will be another 2 weeks apart. So at week number 1, 2, after 3, 4, at week 5, you have AI course 2, and at week 6, starting from that, you have the AI course 2. So if you take this track, it's still 3 weeks apart. If you take this track, it's still 3 weeks apart.
Maybe it makes sense to combine them, given that we have a very limited number of people left.
That's under discussions. Some of these business analytics courses will be shared with the MBT program, but AI courses will be only for MBAI program. So again, and KSC will try to sell those courses separately, course by course. You are taking those as a program, so it's less expensive for you if you consider the price of one course. Of course, those people who take in one course will pay more because they're just taking one course and not the whole program. Yeah, I know that it's still probably going to be a small class, which is advantage for you and disadvantage for us at KSC because the program is not as much profitable, or probably just at the level of surviving, but that's our problems and not your problems. So
yeah, but at least to have this option, to give it to students. If somebody like me, I would like to take both, and then even.
So my suggestion is to allow you still allowed to only take one track for credit, but another you allow to audit for free, but that decision will be not up to you. So that was my suggestion. So if you decide to take the AI track, you take those courses for the credit, but you can visit and sit at the business analytics courses for free, just you're not going to pass exams and you're not going to get a mark.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yes.
Again, that's my suggestion to keep scope economics, but the decision is beyond me. That's a financial kind of sort of decision that they don't need to make.
Yeah. If you gave me that option, I would take the credit in the AI and I would audit the business.
So any ideas who was thinking about the AI track and who was thinking more about the AI track, so they'll give me some ideas.
I don't know. Now I think I will choose business analytics. I am not ready for
well, that's Topper's mission accomplished. I scared you of the AI track, so now more will take the business analytics tracks, because last year more students want to take the AI track than the business analytics track. So that's why if I scare you with the AI track, probably it will be 50-50. Which is good. So questions or dreams? We should ask those guys to open a bottle first.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the course. Great, thank you. Great job.
That's great, yeah.
В принципе, нет.
И закончим мы в 18, да?
17, думаю, да.
Ну, мы вот эту же математику будем, только без привязки к там кейсам, алгоритмам, больше математику и писать на доске.
Это про AI, да?
Это Mathematics of AI завтра. Ну, вот это вот последнее, это была вот Mathematics of AI.
I will choose business. Я трошки, ну, на самом деле, если посмотреть это глобально, фактически логика нейронетворки это же самое как регрессия, да, только?
Да, конечно. Только функция более сложная.
Да. Логика та же самая. Подбор логика параметров, минимизация ошибки.
Как я говорил, логика любого супервайзерного алгоритма та же самая. Неважно, это нейронная сеть, или decision trees, или регрессия, или там.
А можно мы сделаем жребий на членов команды, так чтобы было понятно? Ну, у нас же должно быть команду и подвигать.
Да, вы можете поделиться как угодно. Мне, в принципе, можете жребий кидать, можете решить.
Я поделюсь уже.
Не, надо...
Ты залимый?
В общем, нам нужно было поделиться, и я ей не пообещал уже.
Ну,
Нет, цель была поделиться.
Up to you. So
Я поделился.
I basically need to know how you split a couple of weeks from today. So, see, I guess you're not doing the project, no? You do?
I can do it alone, because...
Yeah, sure. Up to you.
Можем укрупнить группу.
Oh, I will not be against if Alicia join one of the groups as a third member because she's not taking the course for credit in any case. So if she do too much, it's okay for the group. So again, up to you. You can do it alone, or you can join one of the group as a third member. Knowing that you will not get. So дякую. Як вдалося знайти. Я поки тут I'm just talking too much instead of doing the real job. That's what it is. Дякую.
Я маю Віктор, дякую вам велике.
Навіть трохи не чи за кермом.
Я взагалі не п'ю.
Дякую тобі.
Дякую вам. Все, до зустрічі в новому році.
Ой-ой-ой, святами.